Chapter 757. Due to the restraint of the primordial spore, the Emperor character was unable to control Xia Zhehuang's body to counterattack. The demonic sword stabbed into Xia Zhehuang's head inch by inch. At the same time, a black demonic aura invaded Xia Zhehuang's body, weakening his vitality. The Emperor character was the wheel of destiny condensed by Xia Zhehuang. Its foundation was Xia Zhehuang. With Xia Zhehuang's vitality weakening, the glow on the Emperor character dimmed, no longer having its previous aura. How dare you? Just as Zhou was rejoicing, he suddenly heard a cold female voice coming from above the Hall of Supreme Harmony. And the source of the voice was the log standing there. There's a woman in that log? Zhou was secretly surprised. As the female voice sounded from the log, the stars in the sky shimmered as starlight descended. It tore through the dark clouds and illuminated Forbidden City. Zhou took a careful look. The lit stars were clearly the 28 lunar mansions. Apart from the 28 lunar mansions, no other starlight pierced through the dark clouds. The starlight shone down, causing the entire Forbidden City to emit resplendent starlight, especially the four corner towers. They seemed to emit a divine glow. Be it the 28 lunar mansions in the sky or the four corner towers, they all used the log as the center. The starlight condensed on the log, causing it to emit purple starlight as though countless stars were swirling inside. Under the starlight emitted by the purple log, Zhou felt a pain on his forehead. He immediately felt that something was amiss. He took out a mirror and saw purple light and lines appear on his forehead. From the parts that had already condensed, it seemed like the word slave was about to condense again. Forbidden City's layout is the Polaris Star enclosure. The Polaris Star is also known as the Emperor's Star. It's the life star of the Emperor. Now that the 28 lunar mansions have appeared, the four corner towers have submitted. Could it be that the log is Emperor Polaris? Zhou guessed. If it was really the legendary Emperor Polaris, Zhou felt that he was doomed today. Unlike ordinary mythical creatures, Emperor Polaris was an existence that ruled over all immortals. He was an immortal emperor, something that ordinary mythical creatures couldn't compare to. The lines outlined by the word slave on his forehead became more obvious. Zhou continuously switched a few life souls, but he was unable to stop the slave from forming. Suddenly, Zhou felt a force surge out of his body. It was the power of the Sigh of the King, but this time, it wasn't controlled by Zhou. Instead, the Sigh of the King took the initiative. It was somewhat similar to the time he knelt. In an instant, the incomplete slave word on Zhou's forehead shattered and dissipated. The power of the Sigh of the King enveloped his body as though he had been pulled into a warm embrace. Scram! Zhou felt a voice coming from his body. The voice was vague, but it seemed to have supreme majesty. The dark clouds that shrouded the Forbidden City were broken in an instant, revealing the clear sky and the sun. There was no more cloud. The starlight of the 28 lunar mansions dimmed in an instant and disappeared without a trace. The starlight of the entire Forbidden City also dissipated. The four corner towers collapsed, and a log fell from the Hall of Supreme Harmony and smashed on the ground. The log trembled incessantly as though it was about to collapse. It left Zhou shuddering in fear. Crack! Xia Zhehuang's body finally couldn't withstand the power of the demonic sword and was split into two. Demonic aura shuttled through his corpse as though it wanted to destroy his body. The mysterious phone suddenly vibrated at that moment. Zhou took out his phone and saw that the Dead Man Tree game screen had automatically opened. When it shone at Xia Zhehuang's corpse, Xia Zhehuang's corpse was sucked in without a single drop of blood left. Without having the time to take a closer look at the Dead Man Tree situation, Zhou unsummoned his companion beasts and put on the invisibility cloak before running. The log that had fallen in front of the Hall of Supreme Harmony trembled more and more violently, like a volcano that was about to erupt. As for the power of the Sigh of the King on Zhou's body, it made him feel uneasy. He wanted to escape Forbidden City first. Perhaps it was because there were no dark clouds or starlight enveloping him. Zhou successfully rushed out of Forbidden City. However, Just as he rushed out of Forbidden City, he saw a purple beam shoot into the sky from Forbidden City. Then, the entire Forbidden City emitted a terrifying purple glow, as though it was an immortal city condensed from starlight. Zhou didn't dare take another look. He turned around and ran, wanting to get as far away from Forbidden City as possible. Not long after he ran out, he saw Wang Lu looking at Forbidden City with the chick and antelope. The anomaly in Forbidden City worried Wang Lu. She closed her eyes and pressed her palms together in front of her chest as she muttered something. "Goddess of luck, please help Zhou and let him return safely." Zhou was very touched when he heard that. He thought to himself, Wang Lu is really kind-hearted. However, the antelope's eyes were fixed on Zhou. Clearly, the invisibility cloak's ability didn't work on it. The chick was also staring in Zhou's direction, but its eyes were somewhat puzzled. It seemed to have discovered Zhou, but it didn't see him. "Wang Lu, let's go." Zhou appeared and pulled Wang Lu out. Now that there was an anomaly in Forbidden City, no one knew what would happen. It was best to stay as far away from Forbidden City as possible. Wang Lu was given a fright, seeing that Zhou was covered in wounds, many of which were still bleeding, and his clothes were drenched in blood. She couldn't help but ask worriedly, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I won't die. Let's leave Forbidden City first. It's too dangerous here." Zhou summoned the great might Vajra Bull and jumped onto it with Wang Lu before running away. When they were far away from Forbidden City, Zhou got the great might Vajra Bull to stop. Only then did he feel the excruciating pain in his body. Just now, he had been in a nervous state and hadn't paid any attention to his injuries. Now, he felt pain everywhere as though he was about to die. Just moving made him want to shout for his mom. "Your injuries are too serious. I'll take you back to treat your injuries first." Wang Lu summoned a vine that crawled onto Zhou's body and wrapped around him. At the same time, the bud drilled into his wounds and emitted a faint glow to heal his injuries. Then, she summoned a mount and brought Zhou, who was like a vine mummy, back. Zhou was too seriously injured and had to recuperate on his own. He didn't know when he would recover, so he allowed Wang Lu to bring him back. Now, Zhou was somewhat worried. He didn't know how Xia Luchuan and Xia Xinyue were doing. However, he was covered in injuries. Even if he wanted to save them, he didn't have the strength. Once Xia Zhihuang is dead, there shouldn't be anyone in the Xia family who wants their lives, right? Zhou thought for a moment and felt that they probably wouldn't be in any danger. He would get Wang Lu to help him scout for information later. The anomaly in Forbidden City made the Xia family and the Bureau very concerned. They had arranged for a large number of people to monitor the situation in Forbidden City, but no one could enter. They didn't know what was happening inside. All they could see was that Forbidden City was wrapped in clouds like an immortal city. It was increasingly mysterious and unfathomable. Chapter 758. Zhou was wrapped in gauze like a mummy as he hid on the bed. A winged pixie flew beside Zhou, trying its best to spew out green light to nourish his injured body. According to the information Wang Lu had gathered, although the anomaly in Forbidden City was intense, it was limited to Forbidden City. No dimensional creatures rushed out. What was different from before was that in the past, strange sounds could only be heard from Forbidden City during thunderstorms. Now, even without thunder, one could hear strange sounds coming from inside. Unfortunately, no one could enter Forbidden City, so it was unknown what was happening inside. Due to old Master Xia's disappearance, the Xia family was in chaos. Nothing happened to Xia Luchuan and Xia Xinyue. They had even appeared near Forbidden City in the past 2 days. Zhou had roughly guessed this outcome. Apart from Xia Zhihuang, few people in the Xia family wanted them dead. After all, they were the Xia family's hope. The death of more than 10,000 epic creatures was a huge blow to any of the 6 hero families. It definitely had a huge impact on the Xia family. However, it wasn't as big as Zhou imagined. Most of the 10,000 epic creatures were nurtured by Xia Zhihuang himself. He wanted to be a sacrifice for his advancement to the mythical stage. Therefore, These people were from the East Courtyard and didn't affect the Xia family's normal system. From this point, Xia Zhihuang actually had some feelings for the Xia family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have separated these people from the Xia family and set up a separate East Courtyard. There was also Xia Luchuan and Xia Xinhua. Their talent, life providences, and life souls were top-notch. Xia Zhihuang could have used one of them as his 9th life soul, but he didn't do so in the end. Perhaps there were some emotional factors. Regardless, the destruction of Xia Zhihuang and the East Courtyard dealt quite a huge blow to the Xia family, reducing their influence in the Federation greatly. The Xia family and the Bureau were searching for old Master Xia and Zhou Wen's whereabouts, but no one saw Zhou Wen come out of Forbidden City. They imagined that Zhou Wen was trapped in the mutated Forbidden City like old Master Xia, so they didn't search the imperial capital. Zhou Wen had been recuperating in Grandma Wang's yard for the past 2 days. It was strange. Apart from Grandma Wang, there were only a few old maids and a butler in such a huge yard. He didn't see any younger members of the Wang family. Zhou Wen asked Wang Lu and learned that this was where Grandma Wang was recuperating. The other Wang family members didn't live here, and the Wang family's real manor wasn't nearby. Zhou Wen used his stiff-wrapped hands to look at his phone. He saw a purple flower bud grow on the dead man tree. It was likely the flower that had absorbed Xia Zhihuang. Zhou Wen was somewhat looking forward to what kind of fruit the flower would bear. Xia Zhihuang had advanced to the mythical stage with 9 supreme-grade life providences and life souls. Furthermore, his body had condensed the power of the log, so the fruit he produced definitely wouldn't be too bad. It's a pity for my 6-winged. Zhou Wen sighed softly. 6-winged had been with him for so long, so he wasn't used to its sudden disappearance. With nothing to do in bed, Zhou Wen took out his phone to grind dungeons. He originally imagined that he could happily grind the 9 black dragons, but to his surprise, the 9 black dragons hadn't respawned yet. The other mythical creatures respawn every day. Don't tell me these 9 black dragons respawn every 9 days? Zhou Wen guessed. Since he couldn't grind the black dragons, Zhou Wen turned his attention to the Guardian. During his battle with Xia Zhihuang, Zhou Wen had gained insight into the concept of power from the Sai of the King and found a way to use the Slaughterer life soul. That move was extremely powerful and might be able to pose a threat to the Guardian. Zhou Wen called that move Immortal Slaying. Immortal Slaying was basically a one-time move. If he couldn't kill the enemy with one move, Zhou Wen would be crippled. The main reason was that Immortal Slaying used the Sai of the King and the Slaughterer life soul as its foundation. It wasn't that the Slaughterer life soul couldn't be driven, but that the power needed to drive it was too immense. Without a high-level power like the Sai of the King as a foundation, there was no way to drive the Slaughterer life soul. However, using the power of the Sai of the King would place a huge burden on Zhou Wen's body. Furthermore, Immortal Slaying would expend all his strength in one go, so Zhou Wen basically had no combat strength after one strike. However, the might of this strike was something that even Xia Zhihuang, who was wearing the Guardian armor, couldn't withstand. He had even slain the Black Jade Guardian with one strike. Such might be useful against the Guardians in Ant City and the War Wagon. It was too dangerous to use Immortal Slaying in real life. He might even kill himself before injuring the enemy. However, in-game, he didn't have so many qualms. He just had to do it. Zhou Wen's arms were held in place by splints, so he could only lie on the bed. His arms were raised like a zombie as he held his phone and began gaming. Before the 9 black dragons respawned, the war wagon stopped at the bottom of the sea. Zhou Wen went straight to the underground sea, hoping to see if Immortal Slaying could kill the Guardian inside. Before Zhou Wen reached the underground sea, he heard a sound from the window. The window here wasn't glass, but an ancient window made of wood and paper. When it was opened, it flipped upwards and was propped up with a wooden stick. Zhou Wen turned his head to look at the window and saw 2 ponytails peeking out. Then he saw a little girl's head slowly extend out and lie on the windowsill. She widened her large eyes and looked curiously at the mummy-like Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen saw that the girl was only 11 or 12 years old and looked very cute. For her appearance, She looked a little similar to Wang Lu. "Little friend, what's your name?" Zhou asked her. "Wang Chan," the girl answered. Just as Zhou was about to ask something, his hand suddenly slipped and the phone smashed down, hitting him in the face. Zhou's eyes turned black as his nose felt sore and painful. Zhou wanted to pick up the phone, but he couldn't bend his arm. He couldn't reach it. "I'll help you." Wang Chan pushed open the door and ran in. She reached out to pick up the phone on Zhou's face and handed it to him. "Thank you, little Chan." Zhou reached out to pick up the phone when he suddenly heard someone shouting from outside the yard. "Miss Little Chan, where are you? Come out quickly." Little Chan jumped in fright as she turned to look at the door. At the same time, she handed the phone to Zhou. However, Zhou's arm was too stiff. Before he could grab the phone, it fell with a thud and smashed into Zhou's face, causing him to grimace in pain. Chapter 759. Zhou's tears were about to flow out. Wang Chan gestured for him to keep quiet before quickly hiding under the bed. Soon, an old woman walked in and looked into the room. She didn't find Wang Chan, so she apologized for disturbing Zhou before leaving and closing the door. Only then did Wang Chan crawl out from under the bed and pat off the dust on her body. She picked up the phone beside the pillow and handed it to Zhou. "Sorry, who are you? Why are you lying here?" Zhou took the phone and said, "My name is Zhou. I'm Wang Lu's classmate." "Oh, you're that Steel one. I heard sister mention you before," Wang Chan said in enlightenment. "What Steel one?" Zhou was slightly taken aback, but he knew that Wang Chan was Wang Lu's younger sister. He just didn't know if she was her biological sister or a cousin related by blood. Wang Chan didn't answer. She only sized him up curiously and said, "Why are you so seriously injured? Why don't I help you treat your injuries?" "Actually, it's just a superficial wound. With the life pixies treating me, I'll be fine in a few days," Zhou said. Wang Chan curled her lips and said, "The life pixies' healing effects are too poor. I have better companion beasts here that can quickly heal your injuries. Since you are my sister's friend, you are also my friend. It's only right for me to help you. You don't have to stand on ceremony." With that said, Wang Chan summoned a companion beast. The companion beast looked very strange. No matter how Zhou looked at it, the companion beast looked like a syringe with wings. Although the syringe had cute little wings and was pink, resembling Cupid's arrow of Cupid, a syringe was still a syringe. As someone who had been seriously ill when he was young and often had injections, it was impossible for him to fall in love with something like a syringe. There's no need. Zhou couldn't bear to reject Wang Chan's good intentions, but he didn't want to have an injection. "There's no need to stand on ceremony with me. You will recover soon," Wang Chan said as she ordered the syringe to fly down and stab Zhou's arm. The liquid in the syringe was injected. The syringe companion beast looked rather intelligent. It could accurately inject intravenously. Zhou felt a wave of heat enter his blood vessels. It was warm and didn't hurt much. Furthermore, when the medicinal essence spread through his blood, Zhou immediately felt energized. He even felt his blood boil. "Little Chan, where are you? We're going back." At that moment, a woman's voice came from outside the wall. When Little Chan heard the voice, her expression changed slightly. She turned to Zhou and said, "My mom is looking for me. I'll visit you tomorrow. Goodbye, Steel one." With that said, Wang Chan ran out without waiting for Zhou's reply. To have a companion beast at such a young age, Wang Lu's sister's talent isn't bad. She's also quite kind. Zhou felt the vitality in his body surge as his injuries seemed to heal much faster. Just as Zhou was about to continue gaming, he felt something amiss. He felt his body heat up as though there was a huge furnace inside him. "It's hot. It's hot." Not long after, Zhou felt like he couldn't take it anymore. He tore off the gauze on his body and allowed the heat in his body to dissipate. Even so, he still felt uncomfortable from the swelling. It was as though there was a force pushing him in his body, causing him to move involuntarily. First, he ran, but he realized that running released too little heat. Zhou sprawled on the ground and did push-ups. It was as though he had an electric motor installed. His body moved up and down rapidly with the hot air. The heat was really helpful to Zhou Wen's injuries. It sped up the healing of his wounds, but Zhou Wen's crazy exercise tore open the wounds on his body. When Zhou Wen finally stopped, he realized that not only had his injuries not healed, but they had also torn open some areas that had already healed. What companion beast is that? Why are the effects so domineering? Zhou Wen was somewhat helpless. Although Wang Chan's companion beast did have healing effects, and the effects were very good, he couldn't withstand the heat. He crazily exercised, resulting in the opposite effect. After lying in bed again, Zhou Wen couldn't be bothered to get someone to wrap him in gauze again. He got the life pixie to treat his injuries while he lay in bed gaming. The blood-colored avatar entered the underground sea and opened the door to the war wagon. He saw the white cocoon floating in the void. Zhou Wen held the golden overlord sword and activated the Sigh of the King. He waited for the Sigh of the King's power to reach a certain level before activating Slaughterer and using immortal slaying. The blood-colored avatar's body trembled. As the Sigh of the King was just too powerful, the blood-colored avatar's body couldn't withstand it. It began to crack as blood seeped out. This level of power was still insufficient to activate Slaughterer. Just as the blood-colored avatar's body was about to collapse, Slaughterer was finally activated. Zhou Wen held the golden overlord sword and activated immortal slaying as he slashed at the white cocoon. The void was sliced open as spatial forces couldn't withstand the power of immortal slaying. The white cocoon was almost instantly split open, revealing the Guardian inside. This was the first time Zhou Wen had seen the Guardian's full appearance. It was somewhat different from what Zhou Wen had imagined. The Guardian inside the cocoon wasn't a dragon. It looked more like an ancient emperor. Dressed in an imperial robe and with a crown on his head, he extended a hand. The hand had 6 fingers, and each finger wore a ring. Immediately, the 6 rings brought with them intense spatial fluctuations as one of his hands faced the golden overlord sword. Crack! Wherever the golden overlord sword passed, the Guardian's arm was sliced off as blood splattered. The spatial forces couldn't change the trajectory of immortal slaying. Zhou Wen was first delighted before he saw the Guardian's other hand extend out. It also had 6 fingers and 6 rings. With a slap, the blood-colored avatar, who had fallen into a weakened state after using immortal slaying, exploded. The game screen went black. From the looks of it, immortal slaying is still useful against Guardians. However, next time, I should directly sever the Guardian's neck. Zhou Wen dripped his blood to revive and enter the game again. Soon, Zhou Wen realized that although immortal slaying could fend off the Guardian, he didn't have the ability to continue fighting because he missed. As for this Guardian, he had very powerful spatial powers. It was clearly very difficult to kill him in one strike. Zhou Wen tried a few times, but he could only injure him, not kill him. The power of immortal slaying is continuous. If I can guarantee that the blood-colored avatar won't be killed by the counterattack, as long as I wait a little longer, the Guardian might die. Zhou Wen continued trying. He realized that this was similarly difficult to do. This was because after immortal slaying, the blood-colored avatar's body was almost at its limits. It had no combat ability at all. It was impossible to escape from a Guardian who was proficient in spatial powers. My level is still too low. If I were also at the mythical stage, why would I worry about not being able to kill this Guardian with one strike? Zhou Wen was momentarily unable to think of a good solution. Chapter 760. After many attempts, Zhou Wen realized that he should find a weaker Guardian to kill, such as the Black Jade Guardian he had previously killed or the 6-winged Seraphim from before. I wonder where that 6-winged Seraphim went. It'll be good if I can find him, Zhou Wen thought to himself. The Guardians in Ant City and the War Wagon were probably the strongest among Guardians. At the very least, among the Guardians Zhou Wen had seen, no one had shown greater strength than them. Early the next morning, Wang Chan really came again. The wounds on Zhou Wen's body had been bandaged again. Wang Lu had bandaged them for him yesterday afternoon. However, Zhou Wen didn't mention Wang Chan's matter. After all, Wang Chan had done out of kindness. There was no need to mention her matter and make the sisters unhappy. When Wang Chan saw Zhou Wen's expression, she asked in surprise, "Are your injuries still not healed? Didn't I already treat you yesterday?" "I'm almost done. I want to recuperate," Zhou Wen said. "Why don't I give you another injection?" As Wang Chan spoke, she summoned the syringe-like companion beast. There's no need. Zhou Wen hurriedly waved his hand. "Don't treat my injuries. I just want to slack off and lie here for a few days. If you treat all my injuries, I'll have to continue working." "So you want to slack off?" Wang Chan was enlightened and didn't insist on treating Zhou Wen. She put away the syringe companion beast. "I heard from my sister that you're a genius. You can become very powerful just by learning something. Is that true?" Wang Chan asked Zhou Wen. "Your sister is exaggerating. I've been practicing seriously," Zhou Wen said. "I knew it. How can there be someone in this world who can become powerful just by learning something? I've already worked so hard, but I still can't learn well." Wang Chan heaved a sigh of relief. She pulled a chair and placed it in front of the bed. She leaned against the back of the chair and looked at Zhou Wen before continuing. "Do you have any secrets to learning? Can you teach me?" "It can't be considered a secret, but I do have some experience." "What do you want to learn?" Zhou Wen thought that since Wang Lu had helped him so much, it was only right for him to help her sister. Essence energy arts, sword techniques, and movement techniques are all difficult to learn. No matter how hard I try, I can't reach their standards. "I'm always being scolded," Wang Chan said with a bitter expression. "Why do you find it difficult?" Zhou Wen asked Wang Chan. "Because it's very hard to remember. My memory isn't too good. I always remember the front and forget the back." "I remember the back and forget the front," Wang Chan said. "Actually, it's very simple. Just tell me any primordial energy skill you have learned, and I'll tell you how to memorize it." "It's easier," Zhou Wen said. "This is an essence energy art that I've been memorizing recently." "I memorized it recently." Zhou Wen's expression gradually changed. After listening for a while, Zhou Wen's expression gradually turned awkward. The essence energy art that Wang Chan recited was all ancient text that was difficult to understand. Furthermore, it was very long. She had memorized thousands of words in one go, but it sounded like there was still a long part to go. Even with Zhou Wen's memory, it was difficult for him to memorize everything before he understood the meaning of the article. "Hey, little Chan, stop for a moment. How many words are there behind this essence energy art?" Zhou Wen stopped Wang Chan and asked. "There are a total of 134,467 words. I've been memorizing them for days, but I still remember the front and forget the back. I keep memorizing them wrongly," Wang Chan said in frustration. Zhou Wen thought to himself, "It would be a miracle if you can memorize everything. It's such an obscure ancient text. If you can't understand it and can memorize it correctly, you wouldn't be a genius, but a god." This ancient text was actually about the same as a foreign language. Thinking about it, it would be too harsh to memorize a foreign language work of more than 100,000 words in a few days without making any mistakes. "Did anyone explain the contents of this essence energy art to you?" Zhou Wen asked. "Yes, but it sounds very difficult to understand." "I don't really remember it," Wang Chan said. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and said to Wang Chan with a smile, "Then do you like to listen to stories?" "I do. I love listening to Sister tell me the stories of the 6 Federation heroes. They fight and explore unknown dimensional zones. I also hope that one day I can be like them, go to those unknown places and fighting unknown powerful creatures to obtain magical companion beasts." Wang Chan wore a look of longing. Zhou Wen smiled at Wang Chan and said, "Actually, the essence energy art you just memorized is a story of a hero's adventure." "TCH, can you not coax me like a little girl?" Wang Chan curled her lips. "If you don't believe me, recite it. I'll translate this hero's adventure story for you," Zhou Wen said. Wang Chan naturally didn't believe him as she began reciting the essence energy art. "The great Tao is invisible, but it gives birth to the world. The great Tao is heartless, but it moves the sun and moon. The great Tao is nameless, but it nourishes all things." As Wang Chan recited, she looked at Zhou Wen. No matter how she thought about it, She couldn't tell what this essence energy art had to do with a hero's story. All right, I'll translate this sentence for you first. Zhou gestured for Wang Chan to stop reciting. Wang Chan stopped reciting and blinked at Zhou. She didn't believe that it could be translated into a story. Zhou pondered for a moment before saying directly, "There was a beautiful and adorable girl. She was extremely talented. At the age of 3, she reached the legendary stage at the age of 6. At the age of 9, she had already advanced to the mythical stage. At the age of 12, she was already invincible in the Federation. How can there be such a powerful girl? Are you spouting nonsense? Besides, this has nothing to do with an essence energy art, right?" Wang Chan curled her lips. "Listen to me. That young hero was already invincible at the age of 12. She was just too lonely and couldn't obtain defeat even if she wanted to. However, on this day, a youth who was about the same age as her appeared and challenged her. In the end, he only used one move to defeat her." Wang Chan interrupted him again. "Why is your story contradictory? You already said that the girl was already invincible. How could she be defeated in one move? Do you still want to listen to the story?" Zhou glared at her. "Go ahead," Wang Chan said with a smile. After being defeated by the youth, the girl asked the youth, "Why are you so powerful?" The youth answered her that it was because he had obtained a treasure in a mysterious dimensional zone. That treasure could nurture the world and control the movements of the sun and moon. From then on, the girl embarked on a journey to search for treasures. As Wang Chan recited, Zhou translated the content she recited into a hero story. Wang Chan was gradually attracted by the content of the story and forgot to nitpick at Zhou's story. Chapter 761. Among any knowledge, the hardest to remember were the unfamiliar professional terms and descriptions. This was because such terms and descriptions were usually not used, so there were no memory points that could be linked to one's own knowledge system. It was just like a person from the West District. If you asked him to read the Tao scriptures, he wouldn't know what the Tao was. If you asked him to read the Book of Changes, he wouldn't know what the 8 trigrams was either. These terms were very difficult to form memory points for foreigners. When Zhou told the story, he turned these difficult abstract words into treasures in the story. It made Wang Chan find these treasures novel and interesting, allowing her to remember these terms. The story you made up is quite interesting, but the treasures in the story are different from the true meaning of the essence energy arts, right? After Wang Chan heard Zhou's story, she felt a little unsatisfied, but she also realized a problem. Although it's different, it made you remember those words that were originally difficult to remember, right? Zhou said with a smile. Wang Chan thought about it and realized that she had really remembered them. When she thought of those words, she found them much more vivid. In the future, when you learn those obscure primordial energy arts and primordial energy skills, treat them as a story. As for the things you don't understand, treat them as battles with all sorts of unknown dimensional creatures. After defeating them, the knowledge obtained will be treasures, Zhou said. "I'm not as whimsical as you," Wang Chan said. "If you don't even dare to think about it and only know how to follow the path of others, what's the point of such a life?" Zhou said. Wang Chan looked at Zhou in a daze. Growing up, the experts who taught her at home would tell her how powerful these essence energy arts and essence energy skills were, as well as their origins. They also told her what she could do in the future if she learned them. However, no one had ever told her that no matter how powerful those essence energy arts and essence energy skills were, they were all leftovers from someone else's practice. No matter how strong she was, she would ultimately be inferior to others. Is such whimsical really okay? Wang Chan looked at Zhou in a daze as though she was asking him, but also muttering to herself. Of course, there are only things in this world that you can't think of, but there's nothing you can't do. As long as you dare to think, you will eventually think of a solution. The most important thing is if you dare to think, Zhou said. "I'll try it later." Wang Chan was about to say something when she heard her phone ring. It wasn't someone calling her, but an alarm she had set. "I should go back, but I will remember your story," and I will remember your words." Wang Chan thought for a moment and said, "You are indeed, as sister said. You are a very special person." After Wang Chan left, Zhou could finally grind in peace. However, just as Zhou lay down on the bed, he suddenly heard a crack. Then, the wooden bed fell apart. It was an ancient wooden bed with carved patterns. There was even a carved frame on it. The entire bed fell apart, causing Zhou to fall to the ground as shattered wood pelted him. The injuries on Zhou's body hadn't healed yet. The wood didn't injure him, but when the wounds were smashed, the corners of his mouth twitched in pain. "What's going on? My luck hasn't been good recently. Why did the bed collapse when I was sleeping?" Zhou was depressed. Upon hearing the sound, the butler came over and was alarmed when he saw Zhou's appearance. He hurriedly helped Zhou up and got someone to clean up the bed before changing it for a new one. During the few days that Zhou was recuperating, Wang Chan often sneaked over to play with him. However, for some reason, Zhou would be very unlucky every time Wang Chan came. Once, when Zhou was eating, Wang Chan ran over. Just as Zhou was about to finish a bowl of rice, he realized that there was half a worm in it. It nearly made Zhou vomit all the rice he had eaten. Zhou suspected that his bad luck had something to do with Wang Chan. This was because every time he was unlucky, Wang Chan seemed to be by his side. However, after some thought, Zhou felt that it was unlikely. Wang Lu was Wang Chan's sister. With such a lucky person, it was impossible for the people around her to be unlucky. However, there was something strange. Wang Chan always came to him when there was no one around, as though she didn't want others to see her. Zhou only imagined that the Wang family was stricter and that her studies were more important. There was no time for Wang Chan to come out to play, so she would sneak out. He didn't tell Wang Lu and Grandma Wang about this. After a few days, Zhou's injuries healed significantly. Although he still couldn't fight intensely, he had no problems with ordinary actions. He left the Wang family and took a stroll. Zhou didn't plan on returning to Luoyang. He hadn't done the most important thing in coming to the imperial capital. Zhou put on the invisibility cloak and walked on the street without anyone seeing him. He headed straight for the ancient sword tomb. The ancient sword tomb was one of the important dimensional zones of the Xia family. Many sword-type companion beasts were obtained from the ancient sword tomb. Zhou planned on heading to the ancient sword tomb to take a look. If there was a tiny palm symbol, he would download an ancient sword tomb dungeon. Apart from the ancient sword tomb, there were many dimensional zones in the imperial capital that Zhou planned on visiting. The ancient sword tomb was guarded by the Xia family's guards, but it was useless against Zhou. With the invisibility cloak, the guards couldn't see him at all. Zhou used the Godfiend era's powers and floated over without making a sound. After searching outside the ancient sword tomb for a while, he easily found a tiny palm symbol and took a picture of it. "My luck today isn't bad." Zhou turned around and left the ancient sword tomb in delight, heading for the next dimensional zone. On the way, he had already downloaded the ancient sword tomb. However, it wasn't convenient for him to use his phone while wearing the invisibility cloak. Otherwise, if his phone was exposed and passers-by saw a phone flying in the air, the timid would probably pee their pants in fright. The second dimensional zone Zhou planned on heading to was the 13 Tombs. It was an ancient royal cemetery. After the dimensional storms, it had also become a dimensional zone. It was rather magical and had many good things. Furthermore, the 13 Tombs was a dimensional zone under the Bureau. It forbade anyone other than the Bureau from entering. Zhou never had a good impression of the Bureau. If it wasn't for his serious injuries, he would definitely have made a trip to the Bureau's headquarters. Now that he hadn't recovered from his injuries, he temporarily didn't head to the Bureau's headquarters. It wasn't a bad idea to bid for their dimensional zone. His luck today was unexpectedly good. After Zhou arrived at the 13 Tombs, it didn't take him long to find the tiny palm symbol and successfully download another game dungeon. After leaving the 13 Tombs, Zhou continued to the next dimensional zone. This time, the dimensional zone Zhou went to was rather famous. It was the legendary Great Wall. Chapter 762. There were many dimensional zones in the Great Wall, not just in the imperial capital. Zhou didn't have the chance to go anywhere else for the time being, so he came here first, hoping to find a tiny palm symbol to download as a game dungeon. The various Great Wall dimensional zones were similar. The dimensional creatures inside were creatures called battle souls. However, due to the different regions, the battle souls were different. The most common battle soul here was called the undying battle soul. It was said that no matter what method was used, the battle souls here couldn't be killed. Therefore, no one came here after a long time. Zhou was most interested in these strange dimensional creatures, so he wanted to download them onto his phone and study them. Just as Zhou arrived in front of the Great Wall, and before he could begin searching for the tiny palm symbol, he saw two people walk over. One of them was Wang Chan, Little Chan. "Where are you going?" a silver-haired youth asked as he walked beside Wang Chan. "It's my freedom to go wherever I want." "It's none of your business," Wang Chan said without turning her head. "How can I not care about you? Your father asked me to take care of you. I can't let anything happen to you. If anything happens to you, how can I explain it to your father?" The silver-haired youth said with a smile. "You don't need to explain. Shall see. I can tell you now that I definitely won't go to the South District with you. I want to be like my sister and study at Sunset College," Wang Chan said. Xiaoxi's expression didn't change as he continued following Wang Chan. He said casually, "Little Chan, stop joking. Your sister has the goddess of luck, life, providence, so she can naturally go wherever she wants. However, your life providence is the goddess of misfortune. Apart from me, who has the traversing misfortune Buddha body, who can turn your misfortune into fortune. Only by my side can you reverse fate and enjoy luck. The heavens have destined me to protect you forever. I don't need any luck, much less your protection. Don't think I don't know that you want to use this to threaten our Wang family to help your Xiao family," Wang Chan said. "I need your family's help, and you also need my help. Isn't that good?" Xiaoxi said. "No, it's not good at all. I've already said that I don't need your help, nor do I need any luck," Wang Chan said. "You don't have to care, but have you ever thought about your family? If I hadn't dispelled your bad luck, your family would have been affected by it. Don't tell me you don't know. Originally, your Wang family had a great opportunity to advance the Wang family to the next level, even becoming an existence comparable to the Xiao family. But because of your birth, the Wang family fell short of success. If it weren't for your sister's strong luck, the Wang family might even have quickly declined. Do you want that to happen again?" Xiaoxi said slowly. Wang Chan curled her lips and said, "Don't try to scare me. With my sister around, my bad luck won't affect my family. Furthermore, I'll soon be going to Sunset College to study, so it won't affect my family." "Then what about the people from Sunset College? You will have classmates, friends, and people you like there. However, the better your relationship with them and the closer you are to them, the more they will be affected by your bad luck. They will constantly have bad luck and might even lose their lives because of it. Have you really decided to study at Sunset College without my company?" Xiaoxi said calmly. When Wang Chan heard Xiaoxi's words, she seemed to hesitate, but she still said, "You don't have to be alarmist. My life providence isn't that terrifying. Even if you and my sister aren't around, my life providence won't cause people to lose their lives. They will just be a little unlucky." After being invisible for so long, Zhou finally understood two things. Wang Lu's luck wasn't metaphysics, but because she had the goddess of luck, life, providence. Zhou had long guessed this. However, Zhou never expected that as Wang Lu's biological sister, Wang Chan would have the opposite goddess of misfortune, life, providence. It was unbelievable that sisters born from the same parents would have such a huge difference in life providence. However, on second thought, something unlucky would happen every time he met Wang Chan. Zhou had no choice but to believe that Wang Chan might indeed have such a life providence. The smile on Xiaoxi's face vanished as he looked at Wang Chan and said, "Don't tell me you want to study at Sunset College because of your sister. What has this got to do with you? Anyway, I definitely won't return to the Xiao family in the South District with you," Wang Chan said. Xiaoxi laughed. "It's fine. You can give it a try with that person and see how your life providence will affect him. Then, it won't be too late to make a decision. I believe that other than me, no man in the world can withstand the bad luck you bring. I've already tried. There's no problem, Wang Chan said. Then, did you take him to a dimensional zone? Xiao Si asked. Why should I go to a dimensional zone? Wang Chan asked. If you really go to Sunset College to study, it's inevitable that you will enter a dimensional zone to complete your homework mission. Isn't that normal? Or are you afraid that he will lose his life because of you? Xiao Si said with a smile. So be it. It's no big deal. Wang Chan turned around and left angrily. Xiao Si stood there without moving. After watching Wang Chan leave, he took out his phone and made a call. An outsider approached Wang Chan and obtained her trust. That person might be a student of Sunset College. Find out who that person is. I don't want him to affect Wang Chan's plan to enter my Xiao family. After hanging up, Xiao Si slowly left. After Xiao Si left, Zhou looked at his back and pondered for a moment. Then, he took out his phone and called Wang Lu to ask about Wang Chan and Xiao Si. When Wang Lu heard that Zhou had already met Wang Chan, she sighed and recounted the matter between Wang Chan and Xiao Si in detail. When Wang Chan was young, she had only had bad luck, but her talent was still very good. She was also very hardworking, and her family had high hopes for her. However, a few months ago, Wang Chan condensed a life providence. She never expected her life providence to be the goddess of misfortune, the opposite of Wang Lu's. Her life providence brought quite a bit of trouble to the people around her. Only when Wang Lu was by her side could the situation improve. However, it was impossible for Wang Lu to stay by her side forever. Therefore, the Wang family had always hoped to resolve Wang Chan's life providence problem. They had thought of many solutions, but the effects weren't good. It was unknown where the Xiao family in the South District had heard of this matter. They got Xiao Si, who had the traversing calamity Buddha body, to come to the Wang family. Under the influence of his traversing calamity Buddha body, not only did Wang Chan's misfortune life providence not trigger any misfortune, but it also became lucky. This made Wang Chan's parents, Wang Lu, and company very happy. The Xiao family didn't make any excessive requests. They only hoped that Xiao Si could stay in the Wang family and spend more time with Wang Chan. If the two of them got along, they might become husband and wife when Wang Chan reached the legal age of marriage. Their life providences complemented each other. If they could really become husband and wife, it would be beneficial to both of them. Although the Wang family felt that the Xiao family was deliberately currying favor with them, Xiao Si's life providence was just too important to Wang Chan. Even if the Wang family had to pay a price for it, it was worth it. Therefore, they got Xiao Si to stay in the Wang family to accompany Wang Chan. Firstly, it could resolve the danger of the goddess of misfortune life providence. Secondly, it could let them spend some time together. Perhaps what the Xiao family wants isn't the Wang family's help, but Wang Chan herself, Zhou thought. However, as he didn't have any evidence, Zhou couldn't tell Wang Lu. Chapter 763. Zhou searched the vicinity of the Great Wall for a long time, but he didn't find the tiny palm symbol. The afternoon passed just like that. By the time he returned to the courtyard, the sky had already darkened. When he opened the door, he realized that Wang Chan was sitting on a stool in Zhou's room in a daze. Upon seeing Zhou return, Wang Chan opened her mouth as though she wanted to say something, but in the end, she only said, "You're back. What's the matter?" Zhou sat by the table and poured himself a cup of water. Nothing. I originally wanted to chat with you, but it's already so late. I should leave. We'll talk about it later. Wang Chan hesitated for a moment before ultimately saying nothing. She got up and prepared to leave. She had been in an intense psychological battle today. Although Wang Chan wanted to prove that even without Xiao Si and Wang Lu by her side, Zhou wouldn't suffer any misfortune because of her, she still lacked confidence in herself. However, after struggling internally for so long, Wang Chan still lacked confidence in herself. She wasn't willing to let Zhou take the risk. "Are you free tomorrow?" Zhou suddenly asked Wang Chan. "I'm free," Wang Chan answered subconsciously. "I want to visit the nearby dimensional zones tomorrow, but I'm not familiar with the roads. Can you take me there? Zhou asked with a smile. Go to a dimensional zone? Wang Chan was first delighted before her expression dimmed. She shook her head and said, It's best you get sister to accompany you. Your sister isn't free, but aren't you free? Can't you accompany me? Zhou said. My luck isn't too good. I'm afraid that going to a dimensional zone with you will bring you bad luck, Wang Chan said with her head lowered. What a coincidence. My luck isn't very good either. It just so happens that a negative is a positive. Perhaps my luck will improve, Zhou said. My luck is really, really bad. If you are by my side, you will be very unlucky. You might die. I'm serious. I'm not joking, Wang Chan said as she bit her lip. Zhou smiled and raised the saber in front of Wang Chan. Do you know the name of this saber? Wang Chan sized up the bamboo blade in Zhou's hand in puzzlement. After looking at it for a while, she said in surprise, Could it be that this is the bamboo blade of the Four Gentlemen Blades? Is this a replica? Of course not. This is the genuine bamboo blade. Its owner died in the past. Perhaps it's because I was too unlucky that I ended up becoming more compatible with it. I've always been fine. Don't worry. I'm a tough person, so I'm not afraid of these things. Go back and rest. We'll head to the Great Wall tomorrow morning to take a look. Then, all right. Wang Chan thought for a moment and felt that it was safer to go to the Great Wall. This was because the Great Wall was filled with undying battle souls. They ranged from the mortal stage to the epic stage. However, dimensional creatures like undying battle souls were very strange. They only wandered the Great Wall, and humans couldn't harm them. They didn't seem to have any consciousness and only wandered the Great Wall without attacking humans. In fact, it would be useless even if they attacked humans. Just as humans could not touch them, they could not touch humans either. Upon hearing that Zhou was heading to the Great Wall, Wang Chan secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Going to such a place, even if something unlucky happened, it wouldn't be too bad. After Wang Chan returned, Zhou lay in bed and opened the newly downloaded Ancient Sword Tomb dungeon. The Ancient Sword Tomb Instance dungeon looked very desolate. At first glance, it was just a stretch of undulating hills. However, if one looked closely, they would discover that it was not a hill at all. Instead, it was a mass of graves of various sizes. Some of the tombs were relatively small, like small mounds. Some were hundreds of feet tall, like continuous hills. However, unlike the tombs of ancient humans, there were no tombstones in front of the tombs. At the highest point of each tombstone was a sword. The swords on each tombstone were different. There were short swords, long swords, heavy swords, iron swords, jade swords, swords carved from bones, and porcelain swords made of clay. All sorts of swords were dazzling. Every sword was stabbed into the tombstone like a different kind of tombstone. Although very few outsiders had the chance to enter the ancient sword tomb other than the Xia family, the ancient sword tomb was a famous dimensional zone. Back then, Xia Zhuang's first mythical companion beast came from the ancient sword tomb. Back then, the number of mythical pets humans had could be counted on one hand. Xia Zhuang reigned supreme with his sword and fought for the Federation citizens. At that time, the 6 heroes were like gods to humans. Of course, no one knew of the existence of mythical companion beasts back then. They only knew that the sword in Xia Zhuang's hand was very powerful, but they didn't know that it was a mythical companion beast. Later on, the Xia family became famous for using swords. Most sword-type companion beasts came from the ancient sword tomb. Some people even suspected that primordial sword immortal came from the ancient sword tomb, but no one from the Xia family admitted it. There was something else that left Zhou when puzzled. For some reason, he didn't see Xia Zhuang use a mythical companion beast when he fought him. As he walked in the ancient sword tomb, Zhou sized up his surroundings. He had only heard in Sheng mention that the swords in the ancient sword tomb were lifeless unless one reached out to pull them out. The swords didn't emit any aura or power, so it was basically impossible to tell their levels. Only by pulling them out could one know their true levels and strength. Pulling out a sword was also a technical task. This was because one didn't know the sword's attributes, abilities, and level. If one wasn't strong enough and pulled out a high-level sword, it was very likely that they would be killed. However, if one was strong and the sword they pulled out was only a low-level dimensional creature, it would be useless to kill it. Zhou didn't know much about swords, so he didn't plan on choosing one. He reached out and grabbed a vine sword that was stabbed into the small grave beside him, hoping to pull it out. This was because the sword tomb had a strange force field that protected the swords stabbed into the tomb. If he wanted to destroy the swords here, he had to pull them out first. However, after Zhou used his strength twice, the vine sword seemed to have taken root and wasn't pulled out by Zhou. Zhou couldn't help but carefully size up the vine sword. He saw that it looked like it was carved from a grayish-black ancient vine. The sword was slightly curved, and the blade didn't look sharp. Its shape was very strange. Could it be that I encountered a big guy the first time I pulled out a sword? Zhou spread his legs and held the hilt with both hands. Then he gathered all his strength and pulled it up. However, the vine sword remained motionless, as though it had become one with the small grave mound. Zhou was alarmed. His strength was already considered top among epic creatures, but even he couldn't pull it out. This meant that the vine sword was definitely extraordinary. Perhaps it was a mythical dimensional creature. Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth and got it to pull out the vine sword. Chapter 764. Tyrant Behemoth's immense strength was boundless. It held the vine sword with one hand, and the vine sword was about the same as a chopstick in its hand. Tyrant Behemoth exerted strength, but the vine sword remained motionless. It still didn't pull it out. After using 2 more times of strength, it still failed to pull it out. Tyrant Behemoth lost its temper as it grabbed the vine sword with both hands. Like a tug-of-war, it used its feet to push down as it pulled up with both hands. Zhou was alarmed to discover that Tyrant Behemoth, which had used all its strength, still failed to pull out the vine sword. However, the tiny grave shook from its pulling, but the vine sword didn't move at all. What's going on? Zhou was baffled. He knew that he had definitely been lucky to encounter an extraordinary sword. However, as he knew too little about the ancient sword tomb, he didn't know what this situation meant. After some thought, Zhou got Tyrant Behemoth to activate absolute strength, hoping to use brute force to pull out the vine sword. Boom! With absolute strength activated, Tyrant Behemoth's body became heavier as its feet sank into the ground. Tyrant Behemoth exerted strength with its arms and pulled. Boom! Boom! Zhou was dumbfounded to discover that the sword graves of all sizes around him were trembling violently, as though there was an earthquake. However, the veins on Tyrant Behemoth's body bulged as it pulled out the sword with all its might. The vine sword was still stuck in the tiny grave mound. It didn't come out, as though it had taken root. Tyrant Behemoth constantly exerted strength. Under the infusion of absolute strength's terrifying and boundless power, the surrounding sword graves shook more and more violently. The various swords stabbed into the graves also emitted sword hums. Instantly, thousands of swords hummed in unison as sword hums echoed everywhere. Only the vine sword was still silent and couldn't be pulled out. Zhou saw that Tyrant Behemoth's strength had already been pushed to its limits. The entire ancient sword tomb seemed like it was about to be overturned by an earthquake, but the vine sword still hadn't been pulled out. He knew that the possibility of pulling it out was very low. Zhou heart stirred as he ordered Tyrant Behemoth to abandon the vine sword. He ran to a sword grave beside him and pulled out the huge sword on it. The moment the broadsword appeared, terrifying crimson flames spewed out. However, the flames were nothing in front of Tyrant Behemoth. They couldn't even burn its fur. Tyrant Behemoth stuffed them into its mouth and chewed a few times before swallowing the broadsword. Killed the epic creature, blazing greatsword. Zhou saw the game notification, but the sword had been swallowed by Tyrant Behemoth, leaving nothing behind. After Tyrant Behemoth released the vine sword, the earthquake in the ancient sword tomb stopped. The ancient swords no longer buzzed. Tyrant Behemoth pulled out 2 ancient swords at the same time and collided the 2 ancient swords, snapping them together. As Tyrant Behemoth charged forward, It crazily drew and snapped its swords. No sword could withstand a single strike from it. Soon, 30 to 40 swords were snapped. Zhou kept looking at the game notification. Some dimensional crystals dropped, but the highest one was at the epic stage. He hadn't discovered any mythical swords. There were tens of thousands of swords in the ancient sword tomb. Tyrant Behemoth pulled them out one by one, but it didn't encounter any vine swords. All of them were easily pulled out. Zhou was now certain that there was nothing wrong with the ancient sword tomb in-game. Instead, he had hit the jackpot. The first sword he encountered after entering was actually an extraordinary sword. Unfortunately, Zhou didn't know much about swords. No matter how he looked at it, the vine sword wasn't outstanding at all. It was no different from a withered vine. After snapping nearly 100 swords, Zhou got Tyrant Behemoth to turn around and pull out the vine sword. The outcome was the same. Tyrant Behemoth exerted its strength crazily, causing the ancient sword tomb to quake, but the vine sword remained motionless. Zhou had no choice but to temporarily give up on pulling out the vine sword. He got Tyrant Behemoth to continue pulling out the other swords to see if he could gain anything. As he pulled, a sword wasn't directly snapped by Tyrant Behemoth after it was pulled out. The sword flashed with divine light as it scratched Tyrant Behemoth's palm and broke free. Zhou was alarmed. Tyrant Behemoth's absolute strength was still present, but the sword was able to injure Tyrant Behemoth. Although it had only scratched a little, it was enough to prove its sharpness. After the sword broke free, it quickly circled around Tyrant Behemoth and released sword beams to attack Tyrant Behemoth from time to time. However, the sword beams were shattered by Tyrant Behemoth, unable to injure Tyrant Behemoth at all. Zhou, carefully looked at the sword and could only see the sword beam, but he couldn't see the sword's body. He was even more surprised as he used Truth Listener's power to observe it carefully. He immediately realized that the sword was invisible to begin with. The sword seemed to be transparent. One could only see the sword beam, but not the sword's body. However, Zhou was certain that the sword was corporeal. It wasn't a spirit body, nor was it a pure sword beam. A transparent sword? Interesting. Just as Zhou was sizing up the sword, he heard Tyrant Behemoth's angry roar. The transparent sword flew too quickly. Tyrant Behemoth failed to catch it after a few attacks. In its rage, it unleashed all its absolute strength. A suction force that resembled a black hole immediately reduced the sword's speed greatly. Tyrant Behemoth charged forward and grabbed the transparent sword. The transparent sword was extremely sharp as it sliced through Tyrant Behemoth's palm, causing Behemoth's blood to drip down from the gaps between its fingers. However, Tyrant Behemoth ignored it. It grabbed the transparent sword with both hands and exerted its strength in an attempt to snap it. Zhou couldn't see what the transparent sword looked like, but he could see Tyrant Behemoth's hands slowly move down. When the two claws were about to touch each other, there was a loud bang as though a tough steel plate had snapped. In the next second, Zhou saw a notification pop up in-game. Killed mythical creature, light concealment sword. Discover companion egg. Zhou was overjoyed. It was within his expectations to encounter a mythical sword, but it surprised him that a companion egg had dropped. After all, his luck with companion eggs dropping wasn't that good. He sized up the spot where the light concealment sword had snapped, but he didn't see the companion egg. He immediately came to a realization. Perhaps the light concealment sword's companion beast was transparent and invisible. He hurriedly scanned it with Truth Listener and immediately discovered the companion egg. It was beside Tyrant Behemoth's foot, but he couldn't see it with his eyes. I already have the invisibility cloak, and now I've obtained this light concealment sword. Could it be that the heavens are destined for me to become a peerless assassin? Zhou thought happily as he picked up the light concealment sword companion egg. Chapter 765. Light Concealment. Mythical Life Providence. Invisible Sword Life Soul. Invisible Sword Aura Wheel of Destiny. Light Concealment Strength. 81 Speed. 81 Constitution. 80 Essence Energy. 81 Talent Skill. sword beam slash, sword beam wheel, sword beam rain, Dao integration strike companion form. Sword. Although he didn't know how the skills and life providence were, he knew that the light concealment sword was definitely a top-notch companion beast just from its stats. Apart from its slightly weaker constitution, all its stats were top-notch at the mythical stage. It was even stronger than the golden overlord sword stats. In-game, he tested the light concealment sword skill. Sword beam slash slashed out an extremely condensed sword beam. Its single-target destructive power was extremely powerful. Sword beam wheel was a multi-layered sword beam attack. It was considered a small-scale attack. Sword beam rain was a large-scale sword beam. It covered a large area, but its attack power was much weaker than a single sword beam slash. However, if he used Slaughterer's infinite essence energy recovery with sword beam rain, it would be somewhat sick. Typical sword beam rain could only be used once before his essence energy was depleted. Even a mythical essence energy couldn't withstand 2 or 3 rounds of expenditure. However, Slaughterer's infinite essence energy recovery could allow the sword beam rain to continue. It was like a submachine gun with infinite bullets. Zhou studied the final Dao integration strike for a while, but he temporarily failed to figure out what skill it was. It wasn't an active offensive skill, so Zhou hadn't figured out its main use. The invisible sword life providence was the invisibility ability of the light concealment sword. The invisible sword aura life soul was rather interesting. Apart from the sword beam, the light concealment sword could also emit an invisible sword aura. Others could only see the sword beam, but not the invisible sword aura. If they only blocked the sword beam, the invisible sword aura would take advantage of it. It was truly a sinister life soul. The effects of the Wheel of Destiny with light concealment were somewhat strange. Zhou was still studying them. After using light concealment, the light concealment sword's sword beam and sword aura converged, reducing its destructive power. He was momentarily unable to figure out its true use. In short, Zhou was very satisfied with the light concealment sword. Combined with the invisibility cloak, it was the best weapon for sneak attacks. In the past, Zhou wore the invisibility cloak. If he used the golden overlord sword, a golden sword would be exposed. Even a blind person could see it. Now that he had the light concealment sword, the possibility of being seen was much lower. The light concealment sword has the name of the 3 ancient swords. High-grade light concealment, middle-grade shadow support, and low-grade night discipline. Since there's a light concealment sword in the ancient sword tomb, there might also be shadow support and night discipline. If I can gather the 3 ancient swords and use them together in a fight, how impressive would that be? Zhou got Tyrant Behemoth to continue drawing the sword. With this ferocious beast around, there was no need for the blood-colored avatar to take action. Zhou released his luxurious mythical pets and got them to draw their swords. The outcome wasn't that great. Apart from the light concealment sword in the beginning, although some companion eggs dropped, their levels were relatively low. None of them were at the mythical stage. Apart from that, quite a number of sword primordial energy skills dropped. Most of them were at the legendary stage, with 3 at the epic stage. Zhou absorbed all the essence energy skills, so it was better than nothing. The next morning, Wang Chan left Wang Manor and prepared to head to the elderly compound to look for Zhou. However, as soon as he stepped out of the manor, he saw Xiao Si walking toward him. "Little Chan, where are you going?" Xiao Si asked in a cultured manner. "Naturally, as you wish." "To a dimensional zone," Wang Chan said with a cold expression. "In that case, I'll accompany you to prevent any accidents," Xiao Si said. "There's no need. Don't say that it's all thanks to your traversing misfortune Buddha body when nothing happens," Wang Chan said with a twitch of her lips. "Don't worry. I can control my traversing misfortune Buddha body freely. I've already temporarily sealed it today. It won't affect your goddess of misfortune life providence. Furthermore, if I go with you, I can stop any serious misfortune from happening in time to prevent unnecessary casualties, especially that friend of yours," Xiao Si said. "Up to you." Wang Chan hesitated for a moment and didn't stop Xiao Si from following. She was really afraid that something would happen to Zhou when because of her. Furthermore, if she brought Xiaoxi along, if she could really prove that her misfortune wouldn't affect Zhou, she could let Xiaoxi see the truth and give up. As she brought Xiaoxi along, Wang Chan didn't go to the elderly compound again. That was where Grandma Wang recuperated. Not to mention outsiders. Even members of the Wang family weren't allowed to go there for no reason. Wang Chan naturally wouldn't bring Xiaoxi there. After agreeing to meet Zhou when beside the Great Wall, Wang Chan quickly walked towards the meeting spot. Xiaoxi followed Wang Chan mainly because he wanted to know who was affecting Wang Chan. He had already gotten the Xiao family to investigate, but due to the short period of time, they hadn't found anything. Furthermore, no one from Sunset College had come to the Wang family recently. When he was communicating with Wang Chan, Zhou knew that she would bring Xiaoxi along. He wasn't surprised. Even if Wang Chan refused to bring Xiaoxi along, Xiaoxi would probably meet them by accident. "Brother-in-law, you're here." When Zhou arrived at the agreed location, Wang Chan immediately ran over when she saw him. However, the way she addressed him left him slightly taken aback. However, Zhou immediately understood why Wang Chan called him that and not his name. Now, the Xia family and the Bureau were still investigating the changes in Forbidden City. If they knew that Zhou had already left Forbidden City, it would naturally be a very troublesome matter. Wang Chan deliberately didn't call Zhou Wen's name because she didn't want Xiaoxi to know his true identity to prevent trouble. It's already impressive to have such thoughts at such a young age. Zhou marveled inwardly. When he was Wang Chan's age, he didn't think so much. "Little Chan, is he your brother-in-law?" Wang Chan's address of Zhou left Xiaoxi slightly taken aback as he asked in puzzlement. "My sister's boyfriend. What else can I call him if not brother-in-law?" Wang Chan curled her lips. Xiaoxi sized up Zhou and saw that his face was wrapped in bandages and he was wearing a hat. He couldn't tell what he looked like. "Chang Rai." Xiaoxi. Xiaoxi took the initiative to introduce himself. He mainly wanted to know who the man in front of him was. Wang Lu was different from Wang Chan. Wang Lu could be said to be the inevitable successor of the Wang family. It was impossible for the Wang family to let her marry out of the family, much less let her goddess of luck, life, providence be buried. The Wang family would definitely select the person who could become Wang Lu's partner. Now, Wang Chan actually called Zhou brother-in-law. This made Xiaoxi momentarily unable to figure out Zhou Wen's origins. Chapter 766. Wei Gu. Most people call me brother. Zhou extended his hand and shook Xiaoxi's hand. Xiaoxi secretly memorized the name, but he naturally wouldn't call him brother. He only waited to return and investigate Wei Ji's origins. In an office in the Imperial Capital's Special Inspector Bureau headquarters, Wei Gu, who was drinking tea, suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose and muttered to himself, "Who's thinking of me? Cut out. Brother-in-law, aren't you going to Great Wall? Let's go quickly." Wang Chan pulled Zhou towards the staircase at the entrance of the Great Wall. Zhou had been searching outside the Great Wall for a long time, but he couldn't find the tiny palm symbol. However, he didn't give up and wanted to search the Great Wall. After all, dimensional creatures like undying battle souls had very rare characteristics. Such dimensional creatures might be of great use. Wang Chan was still somewhat uneasy, afraid that her goddess of misfortune would harm Zhou. Xiaoxi walked at the back with a smile on his face, but he was sneering inwardly. "Do you think you'll really be safe in a place like the Great Wall? You're too naive." Zhou hadn't climbed the Great Wall yesterday and had only searched outside, so he hadn't seen undying battle souls. After climbing the Great Wall, he finally knew what kind of existence battle souls were. On top of the ancient city walls, armored soldiers wandered aimlessly, as if they had no souls. Their attire looked very ancient, and these soldiers were like virtual projections. Their bodies were transparent. Zhou reached out to grab the arm of an undying battle soul, but his palm passed through the battle soul's body as though the battle soul was only an illusion and not a real creature. Zhou condensed his essence energy and attempted to attack the undying battle souls, but it was useless. All sorts of essence, energy skills passed through the undying battle soul's bodies, unable to affect them at all. An undying battle soul wandered over and passed through Zhou Wan and company as it continued wandering forward. These undying battle souls are really interesting. They're a little similar to Spirit Bride, but they seem a little different. Zhou Wan sized up the undying battle soul with interest. It was clearly Wang Chan's first time seeing an undying battle soul. She was clearly very curious as she reached out to grab it, but it was naturally futile. In the past, I've only heard that the immortal battle soul was very magical. Today, I've finally seen it for myself. Wang Chan was very happy. This was because the undying battle soul couldn't harm anyone. There was no need to worry that Zhou Wan would be affected by her bad luck. Xiaoxi looked at the undying battle souls with an undetectable glint in his eyes. Zhou Wan searched for the tiny palm symbol along the way, but Wang Chan only treated it as a tourist. However, the scenery of the Great Wall was just too monotonous. Apart from the wall, there were only undying battle souls. After watching for a long time, he felt a little bored. As he was walking, he suddenly saw black smoke rising in front of him. Looking in the direction where the black smoke was rising, he saw that the place where the smoke was coming from was the beacon tower. The so-called beacon tower was actually a place where signals were transmitted in ancient times. In ancient times, there were no modern signal stations, nor were there any radio equipment or satellites to transmit signals over long distances. They could only rely on this method of burning smoke to let people in the distance see the signal. Therefore, there would be a beacon tower built at regular intervals on the Great Wall to quickly transmit information. This was also the main purpose of the Great Wall. Although the Great Wall was tall and majestic, its main purpose wasn't for combat. Apart from the beacon tower's function of transmitting information, the Great Wall's greatest purpose was to block trade and information transmission. However, in modern times, the Great Wall was basically useless. After the dimensional storms, very few humans climbed the Great Wall, much less ignite a beacon. Now, smoke suddenly rose from the beacon tower on the Great Wall. It made Wang Chan's heart skip a beat as she felt that something was amiss. Smoke rose into the sky from the nearby beacon tower. From afar, it looked like a black tornado rushing into the sky. What was even stranger was that the soulless battle souls seemed to wake up all of a sudden. Their eyes glowed red as they swarmed towards the beacon tower. Brother-in-law, something doesn't seem right. Let's leave quickly. Wang Chan pulled Zhou Wan and wanted to leave the Great Wall. She was really afraid that something would happen. However, when they ran back to where they had come from, they didn't see the stairs that led to the Great Wall. The Great Wall had already transformed into a dimensional zone. It was impossible to jump off the city wall and leave. Although they could jump out of the city wall, the dimensional zone's power would take effect if they did so. Their bodies would be bound by a mysterious force. The further they were from the Great Wall, the greater the force. It was as though there was a powerful spring hanging on their bodies. They would eventually be pulled back to the Great Wall. Only by leaving through the stairs could they truly leave the Great Wall. No, how can there be no one? It's clearly here. Wang Chan looked around and was so anxious that she was about to cry. It's fine. Since we can't get out, why don't we see what's on the beacon tower? As Zhou Wan spoke, he walked towards the beacon tower. Although Wang Chan was very worried, there was nothing she could do. All she could do was follow Zhou Wan to the beacon tower. Xiaoxi said from the side, I've long said that only my traversing calamity Buddha body can make you carefree. No one else can. Wang Chan pretended not to hear him and quickly walked to Zhou Wan's side. Soon, the three of them ascended a nearby beacon tower. They saw a strange container emitting a large amount of black smoke, and the nearby undying battle souls were throwing themselves into the container. Zhou Wan was somewhat surprised to discover that the reason the black smoke was produced seemed to be because of the burning of the undying battle souls. Zhou Wan turned to look at the other nearby beacon towers, but he didn't see any smoke rising from them. Only this beacon tower had smoke rising from it. He carefully sized up the container. It was a two-eared pot. It was completely black, but it wasn't made of gold or jade. It looked more like lacquer. There were mysterious patterns and patterns engraved on the pot. Zhou couldn't understand what they meant. As more and more undying battle souls entered the pot, the patterns on the pot gradually lit up. It was as though an evil aura was circulating around the pot. The nearby undying battle souls had already entered the pot, and the black smoke stopped spewing out. The pot began to shake violently. Suddenly, something spewed out from the ear flask. Wang Chan's expression changed drastically when she saw what it was. Chapter 767. Silver-winged Yiksha. Why is there a silver-winged Yiksha on the Great Wall? Wang Chan cried out in horror. Zhou frowned as he stared at the creature that had come out of the pot. He saw that it was an evil ghost with wings on its back. Its entire body seemed to be made of silver, but its eyes shimmered with blood-red light. It looked extremely evil and strange. He was certain that it was a dimensional creature and not a companion beast. In fact, Zhou had heard of the name Silver-winged Yiksha before. Not long after the dimensional storms, silver-winged Yikshas had appeared in some coastal cities a few times. As silver-winged Yikshas were very bloodthirsty, every time they appeared, they would bring a terrifying disaster to humans. There were even some places that were massacred. However, in the past 20 to 30 years, silver-winged Yikshas rarely appeared. They had never appeared in a place like the imperial capital. Zhou had only heard that silver-winged Yikshas were terrifying and that they might be mythical creatures, but he had never seen them before. Brother-in-law run. Wang Chan pulled Zhou and ran. She knew very well how terrifying silver-winged Yikshas were. This was because the Wang family had a video of the silver-winged Yiksha slaughtering a small city. Not only was the silver-winged Yiksha a mythical creature, but it was also extremely fast. Its physique and strength were also terrifying. Ordinary humans couldn't even see its figure before they were beheaded by the silver-winged Yiksha. Now, Wang Chan regretted bringing Zhou into the dimensional zone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have encountered such trouble. I told you long ago that you shouldn't have come out with others. Only I can stop you from being plagued by bad luck, Xiao Si said. At that moment, Xiao Si was very smug. Of course, the silver-winged Yiksha hadn't appeared here for no reason. Although it wasn't a companion beast, but a genuine dimensional creature, this didn't mean that no one could control it. In fact, the person who had released the silver-winged Yiksha was Xiao Si himself. However, the silver-winged Yiksha wasn't his pet. He couldn't command it either. What really worked was the pot. The pot itself was a magical item. It had the title of Devil's Pot in the South District. It was a treasure obtained from a mysterious dimensional zone in the South District and eventually landed in the hands of the Xiao family. There were no real devils in the Devil's Pot, but it could seal certain types of dimensional creatures inside. The Xiao family paid a hefty price to find a silver-winged Yiksha and store it in the Devil's Pot. Although he couldn't control the silver-winged Yiksha inside the Devil's Pot, he could selectively open or seal the Devil's Pot. In other words, after Xiao Si controlled the Devil's Pot, he had the ability to release or take back the silver-winged Yiksha. Silver-winged Yikshas were extremely bloodthirsty. Once they were released, they would start a massacre. Their only weakness was that they didn't differentiate between friend and foe. They would usually only choose humans and souls as their targets. Although the Devil's Pot wasn't of much help when breaking through dimensional zones, it was a powerful weapon against humans. Xiao Si told Wang Chan that he could control his life providence, but in reality, it was impossible. Therefore, as long as he was by her side, Wang Chan's goddess of misfortune life providence wouldn't have much effect. Xiao Si originally didn't plan on letting Wang Chan's life providence take effect. He didn't like uncertain factors and only wanted to control everything. Roar! After the silver-winged Yiksha came out of the Devil's Pot, it let out a shocking roar. Silver light erupted from its body as a terrifying shockwave caused Wang Chan and Xiao Si to fall to the ground hundreds of meters away. In the next second, the silver-winged Yiksha spread its wings and instantly traversed a distance of hundreds of meters. It appeared in front of Zhou, who was still standing there. Its aura was extremely violent, like a devil from hell. No! Wang Chan was extremely regretful. She regretted bringing Zhou out. She regretted that she shouldn't have hoped to go to school and make friends like an ordinary girl. Xiao Si pretended to fall to the ground, but his eyes were filled with killing intent. No one knows that the Devil's Pot and the silver-winged yiksha belong to our Xiao family. No matter who this fellow is, no one will blame me for being killed by the silver-winged yiksha. Without him, everything will return to normal. Wang Chan will eventually join my Xiao family. Just as the two of them had different thoughts, they suddenly saw Zhou Wen pull out the saber at his waist and slash at the silver-winged yiksha in front of him. Xiao Si sneered inwardly. What kind of terrifying existence is the silver-winged yiksha? It has devoured so many undying battle souls. How can a human saber match it? Brother-in-law, I'm sorry. Wang Chan shouted loudly. Her heart was filled with regret and regret. Tears rolled down the corners of her eyes as she thought sadly, I shouldn't have had such extravagant hopes. However, in the next second, Xiao Si and Wang Chan widened their eyes in shock. The silver-winged yiksha was split into two by the bamboo blade in front of Zhou Wen as it fell to the ground. No, impossible. Xiao Si's mouth gaped open as he looked at Zhou Wen and the silver-winged yiksha corpse at his feet in disbelief. He couldn't believe that a mythical silver-winged yiksha had died just like that. Wang Chan was also stunned. There were still tears on her face, but her expression had turned extremely strange. Her sad expression hadn't completely disappeared as it was mixed with a look of shock. What did you say? Zhou Wen picked up a silver egg-shaped object from the silver-winged yiksha's corpse before turning to ask Wang Chan. No, nothing. Brother-in-law, you're amazing. Is this a silver-winged yiksha companion egg? Wang Chan smiled through her tears as she jumped up from the ground and pulled Zhou Wen with a look of joy. I think so. However, such a weak dimensional creature probably makes a companion beast very weak. It's useless. If you like it, take it. Zhou Wen casually threw the silver-winged yiksha companion egg to Wang Chan. The corners of Xiao Si's eyes twitched as he wished he could slap Zhou Wen. That was a silver-winged yiksha. A silver-winged yiksha. The Xiao family had sealed the silver-winged yiksha for so long, but they hadn't thought of a way to kill it. They never expected that the silver-winged yiksha would be so lucky to have a companion egg drop after its death. Ignoring the fact that Zhou Wen had killed the silver-winged yiksha and had a companion egg drop, he had even complained that the silver-winged yiksha was too weak. This left Xiao Si so hateful that he nearly crushed his teeth. However, Zhou Wen wasn't in the mood to care about Xiao Si's expression. His figure phased away. Not good. Xiao Si was alarmed. He had already guessed where Zhou Wen had gone. Although the silver-winged yiksha was very difficult to seal, there was still a chance to do so in the future. It didn't matter if it died, but if the Devil's Pot was taken away by Zhou Wen, everything would be over. Xiao Si hurriedly ordered his life soul to retrieve the Devil's Pot first. He was very confident in his life soul. After all, he had used his life soul to silently place the Devil's Pot on the beacon tower. Chapter 768. Zhou Wen's transcendent flying immortal was extremely fast as he instantly arrived at the beacon tower. The two-eared magic pot was still on the beacon tower, but it was swaying as though something had moved it before it vanished. Truth Listener could hear the sound moving and determine where the item was, but it couldn't outline its exact shape. Zhou Wen activated the Holy Hell King Life Soul and opened the eye of the Holy Hell King. Immediately, he saw a young child running while hugging the two-eared magic pot. The child was much smaller than demonic neonate, but the sin flames on his body were very thick. The child turned his head to look at Zhou Wen, but it left him slightly taken aback. The child's facial features were very blurry, as though he had yet to mature. His figure was also very strange. He had a large stomach and head, but his limbs were very small. It was indescribably terrifying and strange. The Eye of the Holy Hell King activated as a force swallowed the invisible child into the Eye of the Holy Hell King. The child seemed to be made of pure sin flames as he was directly absorbed and refined. One could even sense that his holy hell king life soul had made considerable progress as a result. If he could have more of these life souls, he might be able to successfully evolve into a perfect body. Clang! After the child was absorbed and refined, the magic pot that had vanished immediately fell. At the same time, Zhou heard a tragic cry. He saw Xiao Si spit out a mouthful of blood as his face turned pale, as though he had suffered a fatal blow. The destruction of his life soul was naturally an extremely serious blow to Xiao Si. He had fallen from the epic stage to the legendary stage, leaving him alarmed and furious. Zhou grabbed the devil's pot, and with a flash, he returned to Wang Chan's side. He stared at Xiao Si, who was about to escape, and said, "This is yours, right? What are you talking about? How can that crappy pot be mine?" Xiao Si immediately shook his head. "I originally wanted to give you a chance to live. Since you don't want it, there's no need to say anything else," Zhou said as he prepared to pull out bamboo blade. "Wait, what exactly do you want?" Xiao Si was terrified, but he still pretended to be calm. He had seen Zhou kill the silver-winged yiksha with one strike, so he knew how terrifying Zhou's strength was. As for the life soul that Xiao Si relied on and others couldn't see, it had been directly killed by Zhou. It made him lose his composure. "Answer a few of my questions. If your answers satisfy me, I can consider letting you live," Zhou said. "Ask me what you want to know, but the magic pot has nothing to do with me," Xiao Si said, gritting his teeth. "All right, so you were the one behind it. I thought it was me." Wang Chan also understood what had happened and glared angrily at Xiao Si. Zhou pulled her back and looked at Xiao Si. "I don't care if it has anything to do with you. Tell me the origins of this pot, and what's its use?" "This pot has a name in the South District. It's called the Devil's Pot. You'll know if you ask around. It can seal certain special dimensional creatures," Xiao Sidong answered as his fingers moved in his sleeve without anyone noticing. "How can I control this pot?" Zhou asked again. "That's very simple." Xiao Si explained how to use the Devil's Pot. "That child was your life soul, right? What's his name? What's its use?" Zhou asked again. He was very interested in Xiao Si's life soul. How could a life soul have so many sinful fires? It was even more than the sinful fires in Xiao Si's body. This was somewhat unreasonable. Kumin Thong is a relatively common life soul in Chiang Rai. As long as one cultivates the Kumin Thong essence energy art, they will have a Kumin Thong life soul. However, their abilities will be slightly different, Xiao Si said. Zhou's eyes lit up when he heard that. He stared at Xiao Si and asked, "In that case, many people in Chiang Rai have Kumin Thong life souls." "It's not just Chiang Rai. Many epic experts in the nearby areas have Kumin Thong life souls," Xiao Si answered readily. "One last question. Why do you want to bring Wang Chan to the Xiao family?" Zhou asked Xiao Si. "Of course, we hope to obtain the Wang family's help so that our Xiao family..." Before Xiao Si could finish his sentence, Zhou's bamboo blade had already been unsheathed. With a flash of the blade, Xiao Si and Wang Chan didn't see what was happening before the bamboo blade returned to its scabbard. You said you wouldn't kill me." Xiao Si's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly covered his neck with his hand. However, the moment his hand touched his neck, a bloody mark appeared on his normal-looking neck. Then, blood gushed out, and he couldn't stop it no matter how hard he tried. "I said that if your answer satisfies me, I can consider giving you a way out. Now, I'm very dissatisfied with your answer, so I refuse to give you a way out," Zhou said matter-of-factly. "You?" Xiao Si opened his mouth, but his mouth was filled with blood. He couldn't say a word. He fell to the ground and twitched a few times before he stopped breathing. Zhou used the sheathed bamboo blade to pry open his palm and saw a strange token in his hand. The token was black, but it looked like the bone of some creature. There were mysterious words engraved on the token, and the necklace tied to it was made of many strange materials. It was unknown what it was. "This is a Buddha plaque." Wang Chan recognized it. "What's a Buddha plaque? Is it a Buddha tablet?" Zhou really didn't know what a Buddha plaque was. No, the Buddha plaque is a dimensional artifact created by some epic experts in the South District using dimensional materials. Typically, It's made from the bones of some dimensional creature. Then a companion beast is forcefully sealed in the Buddha plaque. This way, the Buddha plaque will have the power of a companion beast, but it doesn't have an owner. As long as some special methods are used, everyone can use the power of the companion beast in the Buddha plaque. This way, some mortal stage experts, or even ordinary people who have never cultivated, can borrow the power of a companion beast, Wang Chan said. There's actually such a magical technology? Why hasn't the Federation promoted such technology? Zhou Wen was somewhat surprised. It allowed ordinary people to use the power of high-level companion beasts. This technology was just too powerful. A companion beast sealed in a Buddha plaque can only use a portion of its strength. Furthermore, when it's used by ordinary people, there will be many taboos. If anything goes wrong, it will even backfire on its owner. Most people wouldn't choose such a method to control companion beasts. This is similar to the Common Thong life soul. The Common Thong life soul is also a life soul that can be formed quickly. As long as the method is used correctly, it's very easy to condense a Common Thong life soul. However, the method of condensing a Common Thong life soul is very cruel. Furthermore, just like the Buddha plaque, it can easily backfire on its owner. Therefore, apart from a certain area in the South District, very few people cultivate Common Thong. I never expected that bastard Xiao Si to cultivate the Common Thong life soul. Furthermore, it's a child. Damn it. Wang Chan kicked Xiao Si's corpse hatefully. Chapter 769. Zhou Wen picked up the Buddha plaque in Xiao Si's hand. After witnessing Zhou Wen's strength, Xiao Si still wanted to use the Buddha plaque to deal with him. It was likely that the Buddha plaque had extraordinary powers, so Zhou Wen was rather careful. After the dimensional storms, there were too many mysterious powers in the world. Zhou Wen wouldn't arrogantly believe that he was invincible just because he had made some small achievements. If he was not careful, this small Buddhist tablet might become a talisman that would hasten his death. Zhou Wen carefully sized up the Buddha plaque for a long time, but he couldn't figure anything out. He only felt that there seemed to be an invisible evil aura lingering around it. However, this evil aura didn't affect him at all. This was because the Buddha plaque needed a special method to be used. Zhou Wen didn't know how to use it, nor did he have a way to activate the companion beast in the Buddha plaque. After fiddling with it for a while and seeing that it was useless, he put it away. He then rummaged through Xiao Si's body. Apart from a few Buddha plaques, there was nothing of value. Zhou Wen put away the Buddha plaques and summoned Fire Furnace Queen to burn Xiao Si's corpse to ashes. Let's go back. Zhou Wen brought Wang Chan back to the Wang family's compound and went straight to see Grandma Wang. He recounted the matter in detail, but he didn't explain too much. He only described the entire process. Grandma Wang listened very seriously. She didn't say a word while listening. After listening, she asked Zhou Wen and Wang Chan a few questions. Little Zhou, you've done well. You've helped our Wang family greatly, and you've also saved little Chan. I won't say anything unnecessary. I need to gather the core members of the Wang family to discuss countermeasures. Although the Xiao family's influence isn't comparable to our Wang family's, and they are far away in the South District, their companion beasts and various skills are somewhat special. We have to be wary of them. Also, don't tell anyone about this matter. Just pretend that it never happened. Let our Wang family resolve everything, Grandma Wang said to Zhou Wen after some thought. I was the one who killed him. If there's anything you need me to do, feel free to instruct me, Zhou Wen said. Good child. Since you call me Granny, I won't stand on ceremony with you. When I need you, I will think of you. You and little Chan can go back first. Do what you have to do and pretend that nothing happened, said Granny Wang. Zhou Wen and Wang Chan left the hall. Wang Chan looked at Zhou Wen happily and said, Zhou Wen, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I would have been fooled by that despicable fellow. If it wasn't for you, I would have been that despicable fellow. Now, I can finally be at ease. Zhou Wen shook his head and said, Your sister has helped me a lot. In comparison, what I did was nothing. Don't take it to heart. With that, Zhou turned and returned to his room. Since the Wang family already knew of the Xiao family's intentions towards Wang Chan, they would naturally be on guard in the future. There was no need for Zhou to continue interfering. Wang. When's one Wang si Xiao Wang went to say when with si when Wang Wen humph, sister's right. This steel one isn't bad, but he doesn't know how to speak at all. Wang Chan put the silver-winged Yiksha companion egg back into her pocket. She originally wanted to return it to Zhou. After all, she had no way of incubating such a mythical companion egg. It was useless even if she took it. Furthermore, she wouldn't casually take something from others. If he really wanted a mythical companion egg, it wouldn't be difficult with a sister like Wang Lu around. Even so, Wang Chan changed her mind. She didn't return the companion egg to Zhou. Instead, she took it back to the Wang family. Little Chan, are you all right? Wang Lu already knew what had happened. When Wang Chan returned, she pulled her and asked, I'm fine. I'm fine. Thankfully, Zhou was here. Otherwise, I would have been fooled by that bastard Xiao Si. Now, I finally know that my misfortune life providence doesn't necessarily bring misfortune to everyone. At the very least, Zhou isn't affected by my misfortune, Wang Chan said. Wang Lu smiled and said, It's good that you can think that way. Your life providence is nothing. By the way, sister, do you like that steely one? Wang Chan asked. How can that be? We're just classmates who have a good relationship, Wang Lu hurriedly said. Is that so? Sister, you have to cherish this opportunity, Wang Chan said. Cherish what opportunity? No one wants a man without any interest at all. It would be strange if he has a girlfriend, Wang Lu said with a twitch of her lips. That might not be the case. I think Steely one isn't bad. If you don't want him, I'll be his girlfriend when I grow up. With that said, Wang Chan carried the companion egg back to her room. Wang Lu was taken aback. She never expected Wang Chan to say that. After Zhou returned to his room, he continued grinding the ancient sword tomb. He was still thinking about the shadow-bearing sword and the Knight Immaculate sword. However, the ancient sword tomb was just too big. Most of the ancient swords were only at the mortal and legendary stage. It wasn't easy to find an epic one, much less a mythical one. After grinding for a few hours, none of the ancient swords destroyed were at the mythical stage. However, the vine sword was still there. Zhou had tried all sorts of methods to pull out the sword, but the outcome was the same. He couldn't pull it out no matter what. Zhou didn't take out the Buddha plaques to study because he was afraid that there were special settings on them. It wouldn't be good if the Xiao family found them through the clues. Placing them in the chaos space was equivalent to being in another space. All connections with the outside world were severed. No matter how powerful the Xiao family was, it was impossible for them to find the Buddha plaques. Zhou planned on taking out the Buddha plaques to study after he left the imperial capital. The only regret he had in coming to the imperial capital was that he hadn't downloaded the Great Wall Dungeon. However, Zhou roughly knew that the undying battle soul was likely a soul-type creature. It wasn't that it couldn't be killed, but it required some special powers. The changes in the Forbidden City continued. Thunder and lightning continued to fall from the sky, turning the Forbidden City into a city of thunder and lightning. However, the thunder and lightning were limited to the Forbidden City and didn't have much impact on the imperial capital. Some people had already attempted to enter Forbidden City to explore the situation inside, but the outcome was terrible. Be it companion beasts or humans, they immediately lost contact after entering Forbidden City. Up to now, not a single person had walked out alive. What's the woman inside that log? What's her relationship with the antelope? Why did the antelope get me to carry her into Forbidden City? Zhou thought about this question for a long time, but failed to come up with an answer. When he asked the antelope, it always looked at him with a strange expression. He couldn't tell what its expression meant. It looked like pity, regret, contempt, and even schadenfreude. In short, it left Zhou's hair standing on end every time, but the antelope didn't give him an answer. Chapter 770. In the next few days, Zhou went to some dimensional zones in the imperial capital, but he didn't find anything. He didn't discover the tiny palm symbol. The Wang family had already decided on the Xiao family's matter. Although they had temporarily appeased the Xiao family, it was ultimately a latent danger. The Xiao family's interest in Wang Chan probably wouldn't stop because of Xiao Xi's death. The Wang family also wanted to figure out the cause and effect of this matter. If possible, they even wanted to destroy the Xiao family to eliminate this future trouble. However, the Xiao family wasn't weak. Furthermore, they were far away in the South District. The Wang family couldn't reach there. To destroy a local wealthy family like the Xiao family, probably only the South District's ruler, the Dugu family, could easily do it. The Wang family could only first stabilize the Xiao family before slowly plotting in secret. They wanted to figure out why the Xiao family wanted Wang Chan. The matter in the imperial capital was basically over. Zhou planned on returning to Luoyang. Before he left, Grandma Wang sent him off with Wang Lu and Wang Chan. She even exhorted him to visit her house often when he was free. Zhou left the imperial capital and arrived at an abandoned village. He saw Sheng sitting on a tree root waiting for him. Young Master Wen, how's old Master Xia? And Sheng had been here for so long. Although he hadn't entered the imperial capital himself, he already knew the situation in the imperial capital like the back of his hand. He had already contacted Zhou Wen, but for safety reasons, he hadn't sent out any news. He won't appear again in the future. Zhou Wen roughly recounted Xia Zhouwang's matter, shocking in Sheng. Old Master Xia is Xia Zhouwang. Furthermore, his invincible connate divine art hasn't been broken. In that case, the Xia family isn't actually his bloodline? And Sheng immediately had the same guess as Zhou Wen. Who knows? In theory, if the invincible connate divine art hasn't been broken, it's impossible for Xia Zhouwang to have descendants. However, his invincible connate divine art has already fused with the Great Emperor Sutra to form the Great Emperor Sutra. Perhaps he can have descendants. Now that he's dead, this secret will probably never be known by anyone, Zhou said. How's Forbidden City now? And Sheng asked another important question. I don't know either. You have to ask it. Zhou looked at the listless antelope. And Sheng clearly knew that he couldn't get an answer from the antelope, so he changed the topic. Li Xian went to the South District. Why did you suddenly go to the South District? Zhou was taken aback. Li Xian had never told him about this. Did Li Maobai get him? Zhou suddenly thought of something as his expression changed drastically. No, he went with Worm Dugu. Worm Dugu wanted to take him in as a disciple, but Li Xian didn't agree. In order to move Li Xian, Worm Dugu told him some secrets, so Li Xian wanted to try his luck in the South District. He was afraid that you would be anxious, so he didn't get me to tell you. And Sheng recounted the situation. Zhou was really worried. Li Xian looked carefree on the surface, but in fact he was a person who was easily swayed by his emotions. This was Li Xian's weakness, but it was also his strength. Zhou was really afraid that something would happen to him in the South District. One long Li Ti. Li Ti long have one, said. Li was Ti Li Ti Tiang Li Wen Ti Tiang Ti Li have Yi Chan Ti Chan Li Li Xian. It was too late to say anything now. Zhou only hoped that Li Xian could return safely. There's a rather famous earth temple up ahead. Do you want to take a look? And Sheng asked Zhou when they arrived at a small town. Earth temple? It's good to take a look. Zhou still remembered that he had obtained a treasure map the last time he went to the Earth Temple. However, before he could dig up any treasures, he had been given a metal walnut by a doll-like dimensional creature. Inside the metal walnut was Tai Sui. The functions of the Earth Temples in the East District were similar. If locals paid respects to the Earth Lord, they might obtain a treasure map. However, if they weren't born in this land, even if they kowtowed until their heads bled, the Earth Lord wouldn't bother with them. And Sheng took Zhou to the nearby Earth Temple. The Earth Temple here was indeed much bigger than the one Zhou had gone to previously. Furthermore, the main god of this temple was Earth. It didn't share the temple and incense offerings with the other deities. Treasure map for sale. It's an authentic treasure map obtained by a local. It only requires one legendary companion egg. A freshly made treasure map for exchange for 2 legendary strength crystals that are measured to be above level 6. A treasure map passed down by my ancestors. It was very lively in front of the Earth Temple. It was like a market. Many stalls were selling treasure maps, and there were also people selling crystals and companion eggs. Why don't these locals dig for treasures themselves? Zhou found it odd, and Sheng said with a smile, "Do you really believe that these people are selling treasure maps? It's been decades since the dimensional storms. The locals have long finished paying their respects. Only newborn babies have the right to pay respects to the Earth Lord for the treasure map. How many babies are born every year?" Zhou immediately understood that these people who sold treasure maps were similar to those who sold antiques and Buddha statues at the temple's entrance in the past. Most people knew that they were fakes, but they still held hopes of getting lucky. Unfortunately, we aren't locals. It's useless even if we pay our respects. Otherwise, it wouldn't be bad to get a treasure map to try our luck, and Sheng said. That might not be the case. Although we aren't locals, it's very possible that the Earth Lord wants to give us a treasure map because of our good character, Zhou said with a smile. Young man, you really know how to think of good things. Instead of having such unrealistic dreams, you might as well come here and buy 2 treasure maps to try your luck, said an old man who was selling treasure maps to the side with a smile. Buying a treasure map from you might as well pay respects to the Earth Lord. Zhou shook his head and was about to walk into the Earth Temple. Lad, take another look. Perhaps my treasure map is really more useful than the one from the Earth Lord. The old man didn't give up as he pulled Zhou back. Zhou's expression changed slightly as he focused his gaze at the elder. His reaction was extremely fast. Even a mythical creature wouldn't be able to touch Zhou, much less an old man. The elder's seemingly casual pull had actually grabbed his arm, preventing Zhou from reacting. This was definitely abnormal. However, Zhou didn't sense anything special about the elder. The sense of danger he had honed over time didn't come into play. The more Zhou looked at the elder, the more he felt like he had seen him before. Although his looks were different, his eyes felt very familiar to Zhou. These eyes, Jing Daoxian. There's no mistake. These are Jing Daoxian's eyes. Zhou nearly cried out. Chapter 771. Zhou's hair stood on end as he tried to gather his strength to escape the old man's grasp. And Sheng also realized that something was amiss as he stared intently at the old man, prepared to attack at any moment. To Zhou's surprise, the old man released his hand and picked up a treasure map that resembled a wooden plaque. He handed it to Zhou and said with a smile, "Young man, I'll give you this treasure map for free. Go dig around first. If you can dig up any treasures, it won't be too late to buy it from me." Zhou stared at the old man and sized him up, but apart from his eyes, there was nothing about the old man that resembled Jing Daoxian. He couldn't even sense the essence, energy, fluctuations, and exuberant vitality that a cultivator should have. If the old man hadn't grabbed him, Zhou would have imagined him to be an ordinary person. "There's no need to stand on ceremony with me. Take it and dig it up. Who knows? You might be able to dig up an immortal's treasure. However, not everyone can take an immortal's treasure. If you don't have the lost immortal technique, I'm afraid you won't be able to return." The old man stuffed the treasure map into Zhou's hand. When Zhou heard that, he felt that the old man in front of him was most likely Jing Daoxian. Otherwise, why would he say the words lost immortal? "Young Master Wen?" And Sheng walked to Zhou's side, but his eyes remained vigilant as he stared at the old man squatting behind the stall. Zhou originally didn't wish to take the treasure map, but he failed to dodge it. The treasure map was stuffed into his hand as he held it. Zhou's essence energy was ready to erupt at any moment. The old man slowly packed his things and placed everything on the stall into a bag. Then he got up and left. As he walked, he shook his head and sighed. This world is really getting harder and harder to survive. "Young Master One, do you know that old man?" And Shen couldn't help but ask when he saw that Zhou was still staring at the old man's back despite the old man walking half a street away. I suspect that he's Jing Daoxian, Zhou said with a suppressed voice. And Sheng's body trembled when he heard that. He said in disbelief, "You know Jing Daoxian? I met him once. Although he looked different back then, I think it's him." Zhou was somewhat hesitant, unsure if he should chase after him. Zhou wished to figure out what was going on with the Lost Immortal Sutra, but the person in front of him was the most legendary devil in the Federation's history. Although there were many great devils in the early days of the Federation, there were also many devils that appeared later on. For example, Jack might have killed more people than Jing Daoxian, but none of them were as legendary as Jing Daoxian. Zhou deeply knew how terrifying Jing Daoxian was. Lord Alcohol and Xia Zhihuang were shrewd old men, but they had been played by Jing Daoxian like a fiddle. Even though Zhou had some achievements, he didn't dare underestimate such a person. Previously, Zhou had secretly investigated Jing Daoxian, but the information he obtained was very limited. He only knew that Jing Daoxian had been severely injured in a dimensional zone and was almost crippled. Therefore, the Bureau had taken the opportunity to pursue Jing Daoxian. Even so, the Bureau's pursuit failed. They failed to capture Jing Daoxian, who was like a cripple. It was during that period of time that Zhou met Jing Daoxian and obtained the Lost Immortal Sutra. Gritting his teeth, Zhou got up and chased after him. Although Jing Daoxian was terrifying, escaping wasn't a solution. There were some things that only Jing Daoxian could give him. And Sheng and Zhou chased after him. But when they saw the old man turn a corner in front of them, they realized that there was no sign of the old man. It was as though he had vanished into thin air. Zhou had been using Truth Listener to monitor the old man, but he failed to discover how he had vanished. It was as though he had teleported. After searching the surroundings, he didn't find any traces of the old man. Zhou's heart stirred as he picked up the treasure map in his hand to take a look. He saw that the treasure map was a wooden plaque. In front of the wooden plaque was a simple map, and behind it was a time. It was obvious that it had just been written. From the looks of it, it really might be Jing Daoxian. "Young Master One, are you going?" And Sheng asked as he looked at the time on the treasure map. "I have some questions that only Jing Daoxian can answer." Zhou handed the treasure map to Sheng. "Help me take a look. Where's the location marked on this map?" "It's in front of the Earth Temple. If the time is converted to common time, it should be 3:30 a.m., and Sheng said after looking at it for a while. "All right, we'll come again at night," Zhou said. "Young Master One, find a place to rest first." "I'll make some preparations," and Sheng said. Zhou wasn't in the mood to head to the Earth Temple to pay his respects to the Earth Lord. He found an inn in the town and stayed there, waiting for night to arrive. And Sheng didn't return until 3 in the morning. When he returned, he said to Zhou, "There is too little time. I tried my best to make some preparations. However, if the other party is really Jing Daoxian, my preparations might not be of much use. Young master, you have to be careful." Zhou nodded and didn't say a word. Seeing that it was about time, Zhou brought in Sheng to the Earth Temple. The area in front of the Earth Temple at night was naturally not as lively as it was during the day. There was basically no one there, but the elder was still setting up a stall in the same spot. The surveillance companion beasts I set up weren't effective. I didn't even notice when he entered the Earth Temple, and Sheng whispered to Zhou, "It's fine." Zhou shook his head slightly before walking towards the elder. As he walked towards the elder, Zhou activated the Slaughter a Life Soul. At the same time, he prepared to summon a half-living pet. As long as there was anything amiss, he would immediately attack with all his might. "You really came after all," the elder said to Zhou, with a smile. "You've already come knocking on my door. What's the point of hiding?" Zhou said as he walked toward the elder. The elder didn't comment. All he did was size up Zhou as though he was admiring a treasure. "I originally thought that you were already dead. Even if you weren't dead, you should be a lunatic by now. However, not only are you not dead or crazy, you look like you're living very well." "Because of the Lost Immortal Sutra?" Zhou asked. This was what he wanted to figure out. He had never known the origins of the Lost Immortal Sutra. Now, he was basically certain that the elder in front of him was Jing Daoxian. That's right. Jing Daoxian nodded and said, "Back then, I found you pleasing to the eye. I originally wanted to give you the Sky Fiend solution I researched for fun, but who knew that you would dare reject me? No one in this world can reject me. Even if they do, they have to pay the price. Therefore, I gave you the Lost Immortal Sutra. In fact, before you, the Lost Immortal Sutra had already changed owners several times. Every owner either died or went mad. Even I was tortured. If not for this sutra, I wouldn't have suffered such heavy injuries in the dimensional zone." Chapter 772. Zhou had no intention of interrupting Jing Daoxian as he continued listening. "Back then, I was heavily injured and most of my companion beasts were dead. I was also affected by the power of the Lost Immortal Sutra. If this continued, I might really go crazy from the Lost Immortal Sutra. At that time, I just so happened to meet you, and you put me in a very bad mood. So, I used a method to transfer the Lost Sutra Immortal to you. Not only could I get rid of you, but I could also reduce my burden. It was killing two birds with one stone." With that said, Jing Daoxian stared at Zhou and asked, "What I didn't expect is that you actually mastered the Lost Immortal Sutra. The Lost Immortal Sutra has had so many owners. Not all of them are peerless elites, but they are all astounding talents. Each of them has their own strengths, but you managed to master the Lost Immortal Sutra that so many people failed to master. I really want to know how you are stronger than them, and how you are stronger than me, Jing Daoxian." If it were an ordinary 17-year-old student, they would definitely feel smug upon hearing Jing Daoxian's words. Even a devil like Jing Daoxian admitted that he was inferior to him. How glorious was that? Unfortunately, Zhou didn't think so. He had witnessed Lord Alcohol's death and knew that the reason Xia Zhihuang was so deranged was because of Jing Daoxian. Zhou suspected that Jing Daoxian had given him the Lost Immortal Sutra for the same reason. "I don't find anything special about the Lost Immortal Sutra. I just cultivated it casually," Zhou answered ambiguously. This answer clearly didn't satisfy Jing Daoxian, but he wasn't in a hurry. He said slowly, "Why don't we make a deal? Answer one of my questions, and I'll answer one of yours. What do you think?" "I don't have any questions for you," Zhou said. "Don't you want to know why the world has become like this? What kind of place is the dimension? How's your teacher, Wang Mingyuan? Where did the Lost Immortal Sutra come from?" Jing Daoxian casually asked a few questions that Zhou wanted to know. "I'll naturally know the answers to these questions after defeating you." Zhou suddenly figured something out. Regardless of whether the Lost Immortal Sutra had been deliberately arranged for him by Jing Daoxian, he could at least confirm one thing. Jing Daoxian wanted to know the process or results of his cultivation of the Lost Immortal Sutra. Just like Lord Alcohol and Xia Zhihuang, Jing Daoxian might have treated him as an experimental subject. Since he was an experimental subject, regardless of whether the experiment succeeded or failed, Jing Daoxian probably wouldn't want him to die before the experiment ended. Since Jing Daoxian didn't want him to die, why should he have so many scruples? Zhou happened to want to know how much strength this legendary devil still had. Jing Daoxian seemed to see through Zhou's thoughts as he said indifferently, "Do you think you can be impudent in front of me just because I don't want to kill you? That's what I think." Zhou didn't hide his thoughts. "Hi, right. I really don't want to kill you now because you have made me see some interesting possibilities. Compared to killing you, I'm more willing to see the answer." Unexpectedly, Jing Daoxian admitted that he wouldn't kill Zhou. However, Jing Daoxian changed the topic and said coldly, "Although I won't kill you, I can lock you up and slowly study you. It's best you think carefully before taking action." "I've thought it through. Before that, I'll slice you up," Zhou said as he drew his saber and slashed. Transcendent Flying Immortal was unbelievably fast, but this wasn't Zhou's trump card. At the same time, the great Might Vajra Bull and Behemoth appeared beside Zhou. One used the Soul Suppression Bell, while the other used Absolute Strength. And this was only a restraining method Zhou used. His true trump card was in his pupils. The Torch Dragon I mirror lit up as he was about to activate Bright Torch Vision World. "We will meet again. Remember, your life belongs to me. Jing Daoxian looked at Zhou when strangely as he suddenly burrowed into the ground. Even the items on the ground burrowed into the ground and vanished instantly. Earth escape. Zhou frowned slightly. His saber beams slashed the ground, leaving a deep ravine. However, he didn't see any traces of Jing Daoxian. Truth Listener was used to its limits, but there was no sign of Jing Daoxian. Young Master One, perhaps I could track him. During the day, I've already scattered water mixed with a special smell on the ground in a nearby area. The water has been dried, but the smell remains on the ground. Jing Daoxian's body was already stained with this smell. I can give it a try and see if I can track him, and Sheng said. Then quickly give it a try. Zhou was overjoyed. He suspected that Jing Daoxian hadn't fully recovered from his injuries. Perhaps this was an opportunity. And Sheng summoned a strange little beast. It looked like a mouse, but it was much fatter than a mouse. It was as fat as a ball and didn't have eyes. However, its nose had many tentacles that looked like meat sprouts. Ordinary creatures can't smell that smell. Only companion beasts with an especially developed sense of smell can tell. As Sheng spoke, he got the companion beast to leave the Earth Temple and search the nearby area, hoping to find the scent left behind by Jing Daoxian. However, after searching the entire town and its vicinity, he failed to find any scent. It was unknown if Jing Daoxian's Earth escape was too powerful, allowing him to escape hundreds of kilometers away, or if he hadn't been tainted by the remnant scent on the ground. As expected of the Federation's #1 devil. It's no wonder he's still able to roam free despite the Federation's pursuit for so long. I've set up so many things in advance, but none of them worked. Young Master One, you have to be especially careful when being targeted by such a person. And Sheng said as he looked at Zhou Wan with a heavy expression. Zhou Wan nodded. I'll be careful. Not daring to stay in the town any longer, Zhou Wan and Sheng rushed back to Luoyang. They didn't stop along the way and didn't rest much. However, ever since that time, Jing Daoxian didn't appear again. The journey was very smooth. After returning to Luoyang, and Sheng's tense nerves relaxed a little. Young Master One, it's best you don't return to school. I'll arrange a residence for you that can prevent Earth escape from entering. Zhou Wan shook his head and said, it's impossible for me to hide forever. Besides, Jing Daoxian might not be able to touch me. After rejecting Sheng's good intentions, Zhou Wan returned to school. The antelope and chick returned to the building they were used to living in, appearing very comfortable. With the antelope and chick watching the house, it wouldn't be easy for Jing Daoxian to secretly take action. After returning to school for 2 to 3 days, he didn't find any traces of Jing Daoxian. Instead, Li Maobai came to look for him again, hoping that Zhou Wan could follow him to the South District and attempt to contract a guardian. Are you sure the guardian is still around? Zhou Wan asked Li Maobai. This was because he had always suspected that the guardian Li Maobai mentioned was Xia Liuchuan's Black Jade guardian. Chapter 773. Why do you ask? Li Maobai was a clever person. When he heard Zhou Wan's question, he immediately had some unpleasant thoughts. I heard that Dugugu, Zhang Chuanxiu, and company discovered a guardian cocoon somewhere in the South District. Furthermore, they have successfully contracted it, Zhou Wan said half-truthfully. Li Maobai heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. I know what you're talking about. The two aren't in the same place. Up to now, no one has entered the place I discovered. It's surrounded by extremely dangerous dimensional zones. The most famous dimensional zone is called the Valley of No Return. Even the Dugu family doesn't dare venture deep into it. Back then, I only saw the guardian cocoon by chance. The chances of others seeing it are extremely low. To be honest, Zhou Wan was somewhat tempted. There were too few guardians. The two guardians he could come into contact with were too powerful. It was difficult for him to lay his hands on them. If Zhou Wan had time to slowly develop, it would only be a matter of time before he killed them. However, now that Jing Daoxian had come knocking on his door, Zhou Wan felt the pressure. Just as Xia Zhihuang had said, if one didn't enter the mythical stage, they were ultimately mortal. As their foundation was too poor, it was easy for them to be treated as a weakness when facing a mythical opponent. It was useless even if they had mythical companion beasts. According to the agreement, if you can't contract a guardian, the guardian will belong to me, right? Zhou said to Li Mabai. Of course. It's a pleasure working with you. Li Mabai smiled and extended his hand. Zhou extended his hand and shook Li Mabai's hand. They had reached an agreement. Such matters were useless in black and white, so there was no need to sign a contract. When can you leave? Li Mabai asked Zhou. Anytime, Zhou answered. Pack your things. We'll set off tonight. After we reach the South District, we have to make a trip to Mongsat and find a friend with the surname Gu for help. With him leading the way, we can safely reach the Valley of No Return, Li Mabai said. Is there any trouble we can't resolve on the way? Zhou asked with a frown. Li Mabai said, the South District is very different from the other districts. The other districts are all about strength. Most of them determine victory or defeat based on strength. However, in the South District, there are all sorts of small, evil dimensional creatures. There were even places where the small was king. The smaller the dimensional creature, the greater the destructive power it could cause. For example, the fairy Undying Goo on the ranking was only the size of an ant, but its destructive power wasn't weaker than any dimensional creature on the ranking. In the South District, there are many evil and microscopic dimensional creatures. If you aren't familiar with the local situation, you might not even know how you died. Although I know a little about the area, I'm not a local after all. It'll be much safer with a local leading the way. All right, Zhou nodded and asked, do you know that Li Xian went to the South District? Where he goes has nothing to do with me. Li Mabai left after saying that. Zhou went back to prepare and told a few people close to him that he was going to the South District. At night, Zhou set off for Mongsat with Li Mabai. Li Mabai brought two people with him. One of them was Butterfly, whom Zhou had seen before. The other was a mute. His name was Mute. The two of them took care of Li Mabai's food and lodging along the way, as though they were servants. Zhou was still wary of Li Mabai. He was careful along the way, but nothing happened. As the air route had long been severed, the road to Mongsat wasn't easy to traverse. After the dimensional storms, it became even more difficult. Thankfully, with Mute leading the way, he was very familiar with the jungle. Along the way, he traversed mountains and ridges, relying on him to scout ahead. Only then could he avoid danger and avoid danger. Occasionally, he would encounter some dimensional creatures that broke out of the seal, which was easy to deal with. The current Mongsat was like an isolated island on land. There were too few people who could reach this place. Only some of the nearby natives and people who wanted to develop in Mongsat, like the Gu family, would continue to stay in this area of Mongsat. On the streets of Mongsat, there were many men and women wearing monk robes. The men's monk robes were purplish red, while the women's clothes were pink. The locals originally believed in Buddhism. After the dimensional storms, faith became even more important. Be it the natives or foreign families, as long as they settled in Mongsat, they would believe in Buddhism. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to integrate into the local society. The friendly Mabai was looking for was called Gu Shanshui. Although he wasn't a monk, he believed in Buddhism. However, Zhou saw many chains on him. They didn't look like items from Mongsat, but the Buddha plaques he had obtained from Shaoxi. Apart from the Buddha plaques, there were many tattoos on Gu Shanshui's body. The tattoos were clearly not formed by companion beasts, but man-made. Li, my friend, I'm afraid there's no way to go to the Valley of No Return, Gu Shanshui said. Master Gu, what happened? Li Mabai knew that something must have happened. Otherwise, with Gu Shanshui's personality, as long as he agreed, he would make a trip to the Valley of No Return no matter how dangerous it was. There's only one way to go to the Valley of No Return now. However, there's a large-scale break-in at the Flower River that we have to pass through. There are already many people who want to travel between Mongsat and Chiang Rai through the Flower River. After entering the Flower River, they disappeared without a trace. There's no lack of epic experts among them. Gu Shanshui explained the situation in detail. The Flower River wasn't a real river. Instead, after the dimensional storms, a type of flower appeared in a large area between Chiang Rai and Mong Sat. The flower grew in patches like an endless river, so it was called the Flower River by the locals. Due to the dimensional zones, the traffic between Mong Sat and Chiang Rai had basically been cut off. Only by taking the Flower River could one avoid all the dimensional zones. However, in the past half a month, there had been an anomaly at the Flower River. Many people who entered the Flower River disappeared without a trace. No one dared to enter the Flower River again. Previously, an epic expert from the Gu family had led people into the Flower River, but there was no news of them after they left. Even many of the people the Gu family had sent to the Flower River to investigate had disappeared, but they failed to find anything. Is the Flower River the only way to the Valley of No Return? Limabai asked after some thought. There's a section of the way that we have to pass through the Flower River. We have to walk at least 50 to 60 kilometers in the Flower River, Gu Shanshui said. Chapter 774. Zhou Wen and Li Mabai looked at each other. If they want to go to the Valley of No Return, they could only go through the Flower River. However, without figuring out the situation in the Flower River, the chances of death were too high if they rashly entered. Master Gu, can you take us to the Flower River to take a look? Li Mabai asked. No problem, but please forgive me. I can't take you into the Flower River. Gu Shanshui made things clear. Even if they reached the Flower River, he definitely wouldn't enter. Li Mabai had promised Gu Shanshui that he would only take them to the vicinity of the Flower River. He wanted to take a look at the Flower River situation first. Zhou Wen also wanted to take a look at the Flower River situation. It wasn't easy for him to come here, so he was somewhat unwilling to return. Gu Shanshui led them to the Flower River. Along the way, they took a jungle path. There was no path at all. Gu Shanshui led the two youth from the Gu family ahead while Zhou Wen, Li Mabai, and company followed behind. Zhou Wen kept Truth Listener's ability activated, allowing him to hear everything around him. Furthermore, he got Tai Sui to use its mimicry ability and transform into a chick. After Tai Sui's mimicry, it looked identical to the chick, but it was white. It stood on Zhou Wen's shoulder with the chick. Zhou Wen was afraid that the antelope would cause trouble if it came out, so he didn't bring it out. He had already contacted Sheng to get someone to send it food to prevent it from causing trouble on campus. According to Worm Dugu, the chick likely had a phoenix bloodline. It had a very good restraining effect on Gu. Tai Sui also had a strong restraining effect on microscopic dimensional creatures. This was an important reason why Zhou Wen dared to come to the South District. Put on your gas masks. Gu Shanshui stopped and took out the gas mask for Zhou Wen and company. Zhou Wen and company put on their gas masks. Gu Shanshui glanced at the two birds on Zhou Wen's shoulders and said, "Put away all the companion beasts as well." Zhou Wen placed them in his backpack and didn't take them back. Firstly, the chick wasn't a companion beast, so he couldn't take them back. Secondly, Tai Sui needed to stay outside to ensure that Zhou Wen wouldn't be invaded by microscopic companion beasts, so he naturally couldn't take them back. Gu Shanshui naturally saw this scene, but he didn't say a word. Instead, the two youths from the Gu family curled their lips as though they despised Zhou Wen's actions, but they didn't say a word. Everyone continued walking forward. Zhou Wen soon knew why Gu Shanshui wanted them to wear gas masks. There were many fungi here, and there were spores floating everywhere like fog. These fungi were originally creatures of Earth. They had mutated due to the dimensional storms. Although they hadn't reached the level of dimensional creatures, the spores they emitted would cause great damage to the human body if they entered the respiratory tract. Most importantly, it was difficult to treat them in the body. Tai Sui was naturally not afraid of these spores. It did not have much appetite for these spores. It was probably because the energy of these spores was too low, so Tai Sui was no longer interested in them. The little bird was also unafraid of these spores. Any foreign microorganisms that entered its body would be refined by the phoenix flames within its body. If not for this, the phoenix would not be the nemesis of Gu insects. Zhou Wen got the two of them to stay in his backpack obediently. As the group walked through the forest, their bodies were quickly covered in a layer of dust. It was actually a large number of spores. On the ground and on the withered trees, all sorts of fungi could be seen. Many of the trees here had already withered, becoming a paradise for fungi. Thankfully, the spores here were somewhat different from the parasitic spores in Dragon Gate Grotto. The parasitic spores were independent dimensional creatures, and these spores were only a part of the fungus parent body. Even so, if an unprepared person entered this area and inhaled a large number of spores, their lungs and respiratory system would probably be finished. Suddenly, Zhou realized that there was a corpse on the ground in front of him. From the looks of it, he wasn't a native of Mong Sa. His corpse had already rotted, and there was a strange fungus growing on it. They looked like egg-sized jellyfish growing on the corpse. They were transparent and colorless. Although the mushrooms looked beautiful, they made one's hair stand on end when they grew on the corpse. "Don't move. Gulu, go take a look," Gu Shanshui said to a young man. The young man responded and summoned a palm-sized black scorpion companion beast. He made it slowly approach the corpse and crawl onto it, arriving beside a jellyfish-like mushroom. Gulu looked at Gu Shanshui. Gu Shanshui nodded slightly before ordering the black scorpion to stab the jellyfish-like mushroom with its tail. Bam! After the mushroom was stabbed, it exploded like a water ball. However, what burst out wasn't water, but countless transparent spores. Retreat. Gu Shanshui grabbed Gu Lu and another young man named Gu He and threw them behind. He took a step forward and spat out a mouthful of flames at the spores. When the flames encountered the spores, it rose like they had encountered gasoline. They instantly burned most of the spores, but a few spores still spread out. Gu Lu and Gu He also used fire elemental companion beasts to burn the spores that had escaped. However, the black scorpion companion beast from before had already been invaded by the spores. It ignored Gu Lu's orders and crazily crawled towards the other jellyfish mushrooms, hoping to destroy them. Gu Shanshui spewed out flames from his mouth and burned the corpse along with the scorpion companion beast to death. The jellyfish mushrooms exploded in the fire, and all the spores were immediately burned by the flames. After confirming that no one had escaped, Gu Shanshu said to Li Mabai with a heavy expression, "Li, something's amiss. That person clearly died from being infected with the spores of a fungal dimensional creature. There must be a fungal dimensional creature mother nearby. Furthermore, it's not a low-level one. It's at least at the epic stage. This has never been discovered before. Are you still going to Flower River?" Li Mabai looked at Zhou and asked, "What do you think? Let's continue." Zhou had been observing the jellyfish mushrooms and spores on the corpse. These things didn't pose much of a threat to him. Even if Tai Sui didn't take action, he could deal with it himself. There was naturally no need to retreat. "Master Gu, please continue leading the way. If you feel that you can't continue, please tell me in advance," Li Mabai said to Gu Shanshui. "All right." Master Gu didn't waste his breath and continued leading the way with Gu Lu and Gu He. The most common method they used was a fire elemental companion beast. However, this fire elemental companion beast was very strange. The flames it spewed out were a bluish-white color. They were very effective against fungi and poisonous insects. "Wait!" After walking a distance, Zhou suddenly said. This was because he had already discovered with Truth Listener that there were many corpses ahead. Every corpse was covered in jellyfish mushrooms. Chapter 775. Zhou, what did you discover? The people in front stopped as Li Mabai looked at Zhou. "There seems to be something wrong ahead," Zhou said as he pointed ahead. Gu Shanshui stared ahead, but he didn't seem to see anything. However, he quickly summoned a companion beast. The companion beast transformed into a mirror and appeared in his left eye, making his left eye look like it was completely occupied by his pupil. Gu Shanshui used his left eye to look ahead again before saying, "There's indeed a problem ahead. Stay here for now. I'll go take a look." As Gu Shanshui spoke, he dived forward. Not long after, Gu Shanshui snuck back and said to Li Mabai, "Zhou is right. There's indeed something wrong ahead." There are many corpses covered in jellyfish fungi. There are just too many of them. We can't deal with them. Butterfly said, we also have fire elemental companion beasts. We can help you clean them up. Gu Shanshui shook his head and said, don't use fire elemental companion beasts here. Otherwise, there might be huge trouble. Although the fire elemental companion beasts we use aren't of a high level, their fire attributes are very special. It's called corpse fire. It's a type of fire that's best at restraining the parasitic fungi on rotting corpses. Master Gu, is there any other solution? Li Maobai asked. We can only take a detour. If we take a detour, we'll have to walk another 30 to 40 kilometers. Furthermore, we might have to pass through a dimensional zone named Spirit Absorption Valley. Our speed won't be too fast. We'll have to walk for at least 10 more hours than expected. Furthermore, Spirit Absorption Valley is a little dangerous. If we're unlucky, we can only retreat, Gu Shanshui said after some calculations. Is there no other way? Spirit Absorption Valley is too dangerous. Furthermore, we might not be able to pass. Li Maobai had also heard of Spirit Absorption Valley's reputation and didn't wish to go there. If we don't take a detour, we can only clear the jellyfish fungi. However, we can only slowly deal with them from the outside. It will probably take 2 days to clear all the jellyfish fungi on the way. Furthermore, we don't know if there are any more behind, Gu Shanshui said. Li Maobai thought for a moment and said, then let's clear the jellyfish fungi. It's best we don't go to Spirit Absorption Valley. I have a fire elemental pet here. Master Gu, see if you can help me. Zhou Wen released the chick from his backpack. After Tai Sui advanced to the mythical stage, it didn't seem to have much of an appetite for ordinary microorganisms. As for these jellyfish fungi, they were only grown from the spores emitted from the mother's body, not dimensional creatures. Tai Sui was even less interested. Tai Sui, mythical, evolvable, life providence, offending the Tai Sui life soul, 12 Tai Sui, God's wheel of fortune, long lived. Strength, 81 speed, 81 constitution, 81 essence energy, 81 innate skill, earth escape companion form, mimicry. Zhou Wen had tried Tai Sui's wheel of destiny, but he didn't discover any special effects. It was useless when he used it. Tai Sui's body didn't change at all, leaving Zhou Wen depressed. Didn't Master Gu already say that ordinary fire-type creatures can't be used here? Didn't you hear? Gu Lu said unhappily. Zhou Wen hadn't listened to Gu Shanshui and put away the chick and Tai Sui. From the looks of it, he didn't trust them. This made Gu Lu have a very bad impression of Zhou Wen. Now that Zhou Wen had taken out a fire elemental pet, Gu Lu naturally felt even more disgusted. However, Gu Shanshui didn't think the same as Gu Lu. Zhou Wen's ability to discover the jellyfish fungi ahead of time made him feel that this young man wasn't simple. Furthermore, people like Li Maobai seemed to respect Zhou Wen, making Gu Shanshui even more afraid of underestimating him. Gu Shanshui stopped Gu Lu and asked the chick, is this pet's flame of yours a fire? I'm not too sure about that, but its flames can be released and retracted freely. It should be of some use, Zhou Wen said. What's the use of being able to retract and release it freely? Who can't retract and release their companion beast powers freely? Do you have any common sense? There are a lot of spores here. When gathered together, it's like a large number of fans. Using ordinary flames can easily trigger a dust explosion. Even without the dust explosion, igniting a large area of spores can also trigger a forest fire. It's very easy to alarm the dimensional creatures in the forest. Gu Lu said. Gu Lu, don't be rude to guests, Gu Shanshui said with a frown. When Gu Lu heard Gu Shanshui's words, he had no choice but to shut up. However, from his expression, it was obvious that he was indignant. Gu Shanshui bowed at Zhou Wen and said, Zhou, Gu Lu is young and immature. Please don't take his rude words to heart. However, what he said is right. Ordinary flames will indeed cause many problems. If you are confident, you can let your pet give it a try. If you aren't confident, let us be in charge of cleaning up. It doesn't matter if we spend more time. Master Gu, I know a little about the taboos of using flames. Didn't I just say that my pet can control its flames without triggering an explosion or fire? Zhou had seen the chick's flames before, so he naturally knew that it had such an ability. Then let's give it a try. Let's spew out some flames first, Gu Shanshui said. Zhou gestured for the chick to spit out flames, but the chick's personality wasn't as good as Zhou. Its intelligence wasn't inferior to humans. Although it couldn't speak human language, it could understand. Gu Lu's words made it very unhappy. Just as Zhou gestured, the chick flapped its wings and had no intention of spitting out flames for Gu Shanshui to verify. It flew straight to the corpses and spat out a blob of golden flames. No good. Gu Shanshui, Gu Lu, and Gu He were alarmed. There were nearly 100 corpses there, and there were countless jellyfish fungi of all sizes growing on them. When they were burned by the flames, a large number of jellyfish fungi exploded. Even if they didn't produce dust explosions, a large number of spores would spread out. However, the next scene left them stunned. The chick's golden flames landed on the corpses, igniting the corpses and jellyfish fungi. Strangely, the jellyfish fungi didn't explode when they encountered the flames. They quickly burned to ashes in the golden flames. Nearly 100 corpses, along with the jellyfish fungi on them, were instantly reduced to ashes. Nothing was left behind. Furthermore, the golden flames only burned the corpses and jellyfish fungi. They didn't affect the nearby creatures at all. Even the other spores in the air weren't ignited. Gu Lu and Gu He were dumbfounded. Even the corpse fire they used didn't have such good effects, much less eliminate all the jellyfish fungi and corpses so quickly. Gu Shanshui stared at the chick as his expression turned extremely odd. After watching for a while, he suddenly turned to Zhou and bowed. Mr. Zhou, if I'm willing to send you through the Flower River and into the Valley of No Return, can you do me a favor? Gu Lu and Gu He were alarmed. Outsiders didn't know what Gu Shanshui's etiquette meant, but they knew very well that this etiquette was a very high standard in Mong Sa. Typically, such etiquette was only used on monks with great merit. Chapter 776. Li Mabai and company also looked at Gu Shanshui in puzzlement, unsure why he had suddenly changed his mind and was willing to take the risk to help them cross the Flower River. I wonder how I can help you, Master Gu. Zhou didn't agree easily. Gu Shanshui had clearly seen something from the chick. Gu Shanshui said, "To be honest, our Gu family is also good at nurturing and taming Gu. I discovered a mythical dimensional creature somewhere and wanted to tame it into a Gu, but because it was too powerful, I never succeeded. If Mr. Zhou is willing to lend me a hand, I'm sure you can subdue it." As Gu Shanshui spoke, he glanced at the chick. Clearly, the person he was really seeking help from was the chick. If it's within our abilities, we should help each other, but we're in a hurry to get to the Valley of No Return, I'm afraid. Before Zhou could finish, Gu Shanshui said, "Mr. Zhou, don't worry. I'll help you head to the Valley of No Return first. It won't be too late for you to help me after we return from the Valley of No Return. Master Gu, I have to ask first, what kind of mythical dimensional creature do you want to tame? What kind of abilities does it have? What do you want me to do?" Zhou asked seriously. Zhou wasn't willing to break the contract, so he had to clarify things first. "Mr. Zhou, can I have a word with you?" Gu Shanshui clearly didn't want others to know about the dimensional creature. After Zhou and Gu Shanshui went to the side, Gu Shanshui said, "The dimensional creature I want to tame is a corpse silkworm. It's in an extreme, in-dimensional zone. To ordinary people, it's extremely dangerous. However, Mr. Zhou, you have the Phoenix Divine Bird, so subduing the corpse silkworm won't be difficult. I can only promise to help, but when the time comes, I can only do my best. I can't guarantee that I will succeed." After all, Zhou had never seen a corpse silkworm before, nor did he know what its abilities were. Therefore, he was very conservative. That's good. Gu Shanshui was very open-minded. After the two of them finished their discussion, they walked back and set off again. Gu Shanshui continued leading Gu Lu and Gu He. On the way, they discovered corpses with jellyfish fungi growing on them. Gu Shanshui's expression turned solemn. On the way, Gu Lu and Gu he would secretly size up the chick from time to time. Even Li Ma Bai and company took a few more glances at the chick. Clearly, they knew that Gu Shanshui's previous actions were definitely related to the chick. The chick stood on Zhou Wen's shoulder and looked around smugly. Zhou Wen kept using Truth Listener to observe his surroundings, hoping to find the jellyfish's parent body. However, he didn't find it. All he saw were the corpses that had been parasitized. Suddenly, Tai Sui came out of the backpack, flapped its wings, and flew toward the forest next to it. Tai Sui, Li Ma Bai, and Tai Bai looked at him. Ma Bai and Wen looked at him. It's fine. My companion beast has been in my backpack for too long. I want to go out for a spin, Zhou Wen said perfunctorily. He didn't want to be perfunctory, but he didn't know what Tai Sui wanted to do, so he couldn't explain it clearly. Zhou Wen kept using Truth Listener to observe the direction Tai Sui had flown in, but there was nothing there. Tai Sui flew out nearly 1,000 meters and dived towards the ground before burrowing into the ground and disappearing. Zhou Wen couldn't hear where it had gone, but after a while, he saw Tai Sui burrow out of the ground and quickly fly back. However, its stomach was clearly bulging. It was unknown what it had eaten. This only took a moment. Seeing Zhou Wen's companion beast return, everyone continued on their way. Although they encountered some corpses along the way, they didn't find any jellyfish fungi on them. When Zhou Wen saw this situation, he roughly guessed that Tai Sui had burrowed underground and eaten the jellyfish fungi's parent body. Zhou Wen felt somewhat regretful. He hadn't even seen what the parent body looked like before it was eaten by Tai Sui. Apart from the jellyfish fungi's interference, everyone advanced much faster. Zhou Wen had also widened his horizons. Many of the strange creatures here were things he had never seen or even heard of before. Thankfully, with Gu Shanshui and company leading the way, they avoided dimensional zones. Otherwise, if they fell into one, it was unknown how many terrifying unknown creatures they would encounter. Zhou Wen saw a sea of flowers from afar. They had white petals and red stamens. From afar, it looked like a blood-colored white river. That's the flower river, Gu Shanshui said as he pointed at the meandering flowers in the distance. Everyone's eyes were already focused on the flower river. Zhou Wen was also using Truth Listener to search the flower river, but apart from the flowers, there were no living creatures. The locals called these flowers the flower of life. Wherever the flower of life appeared, there was no room for other creatures to survive. Even weeds wouldn't grow there. In the past, it was very safe for humans to enter the flower river. This was because there were no other creatures in the flower river, much less dimensional creatures. Therefore, the flower river became an important path between nearby cities. However, ever since half a month ago, no one who entered the flower river had come out alive. All of them had disappeared, and this path was severed. Zhou Wen carefully sized up the flowers of life. The flowers weren't big and looked somewhat similar to peach blossoms. They were beautiful. These flowers of life don't look like dimensional creatures, Li Ma Bai said as he sized up the distant flowers of life. Gu Shanshui nodded and said, the flowers of life existed before the dimensional storms. They were poisonous flowers. After the dimensional storms, the poisonous flowers mutated. Furthermore, their numbers increased, forming a flower river. However, for some reason, the mutated flowers of life didn't have any poison. Many people have experimented with the flowers of life. They no longer contain any poison. Even if they were eaten, it wouldn't cause any harm to humans. However, things might be different now. Everyone, please wait a moment. I need to do some experiments first. Zhou Wen and company stopped and waited for Gu Shanshui's experiment. As no one knew what the danger in the flower river was, they could only analyze it from the flowers of life itself. Unlike the experiment Zhou Wen had imagined, Gu Shanshui opened a bamboo tube and released a worm that looked like a silkworm. It was fair and plump. The worm crawled towards the flower river and first ate the leaves and roots of the flowers of life before eating the flowers. It didn't seem to be a problem. This is a white silkworm. It's very sensitive to poison. If it absorbs poison, its body will show different colors, Gu Shanshui explained. Now that the white silkworm hasn't changed color, does it mean that the flowers of life still aren't poisonous? Butterfly asked curiously. Just as she finished speaking, she suddenly saw the white silkworm's body straighten up and fall from the flower. It died stiffly, but its body was still white, and there was no change. Chapter 777. Master Gu, what's the situation now? Li Mabai asked Gu Shanshui. Gu Shanshui didn't answer. All he did was summon a butterfly companion beast and bring back the white silkworm's corpse. Then, Gu Shanshui cut off a portion of the white silkworm's corpse and fed it to another spider. After the spider ate the white silkworm's corpse, it didn't react. Gu Shanshui picked out a strange Buddha plaque from his Buddha plaques. The outside of the Buddha plaque looked like a transparent glass bottle. Inside was yellow liquid, and inside the liquid was a baby-like statue. Gu Shanshui opened the glass bottle outside and poured some yellow liquid onto the remaining white silkworm's corpse. When the liquid touched the white silkworm's corpse, it immediately seeped in. Gu Shanshui held the Buddha plaque and chanted softly. At the same time, he injected his essence energy into the Buddha plaque. However, after a while, there was no movement from the white silkworm's corpse. Gu Shanshui put away the Buddha plaque and looked at the spider that had eaten a portion of the white silkworm's corpse. He said with a heavy expression, "There's no poison in the white silkworm's corpse. It didn't die from poison. I used spirit control to condense the remnant spiritual consciousness on the white silkworm, but I failed." When Li Mabai heard this, he understood what Gu Shanshui meant. In other words, the flower of life itself isn't poisonous. Did the white silkworm die because it lost its soul? That's roughly what I mean. However, spiritual consciousness isn't completely equivalent to a soul, Gu Shanshui said. Can you find out what sucked the white silkworm's spiritual consciousness? Li Mabai asked. I didn't discover any other creatures involved. The greatest possibility is that the flower of life sucked away its spiritual consciousness. However, this is only a deduction, Gu Shanshui said. This deduction made Li Mabai and Zhou Wen's hearts sink. If it was really the flower of life causing trouble, it would be very dangerous for them to cross the flower river. If they weren't careful, their spiritual consciousness might be sucked away. This seems to be somewhat similar to the spirit-absorbing valleys' spirit-absorbing worms. Could they be related? Li Mabai asked. I'm not sure for now. I need further research. Gu Shanshui summoned many avian companion beasts and got them to fly across the flower river in the sky before flying into the distance. The companion beasts flew a few rounds over the flower river without any problems. This made Zhou Wen and company feel better. If they could fly across the flower river, it would save them a lot of trouble. After unsummoning his companion beasts, Gu Shanshui got Gu Lu and Gu He to open the bamboo cages on their backs. There was a beehive in the bamboo cages with many poisonous bees entering and exiting. Zhou Wen sized up the beehive curiously. He hadn't noticed it before, so he never expected Gu Lu and Gu He to be carrying such an item. The wasps inside were clearly not companion beasts, nor could they be considered dimensional creatures. They were likely mutated species of Earth's wasps. Driven by Gu Lu and Gu He, those poisonous bees flew out of the hive and into the sky above the flower river. As a result, not long after, the poisonous bees fell from the sky, as if they were drunk, and fell into the flowers. None of the poisonous bees were spared. All of them fell into the flowering shrubs. Everyone's hearts were shrouded in a shadow. The companion beasts were fine, but the wasps were all dead. They would probably end up like the wasps if they entered. Gu Shanshui did some more experiments. There were many strange things on him, dazzling him. After Gu Shanshui stopped, Li Mabai asked, Master Gu, is there any way to cross the flower river? There's a way, but it can only prevent one's spiritual consciousness from being sucked away. I don't know if there are any other dangers inside, Gu Shanshui said after some thought. We've already come this far. There's no reason to return, Li Mabai said. Gu Shanshui nodded and took out a few Buddha plaques from his pocket and handed them to Zhou. Hang these Buddha plaques around your necks. They can naturally protect you from having your spiritual consciousness sucked away. However, there are a few taboos that you need to abide by. First, don't take them off after wearing them. I'll help you take them off after we leave. Second, you need to drip a drop of blood on the Buddha plaque every day. Third, you can't eat meat. These 3 rules have to be followed, or there will be trouble. After Li Mabai took the Buddha plaque, he wore it around his neck. Then, he pricked his finger and dripped a drop of blood on it. Strangely enough, the drop of blood immediately seeped into the Buddha plaque. What companion beast is sealed in this Buddha plaque? Zhou asked curiously as he held the Buddha plaque. This Buddha plaque was very similar to the one Gu Shanshui had used. It was divided into 3 layers. The first layer was a transparent crystal, the second layer was a yellow liquid, and the innermost layer was a black baby statue. The Buddha plaque that seals companion beasts is now called a righteous Buddha plaque. I made this myself. What's sealed inside isn't a companion beast, but a Gu. Although it's a little odd, there won't be any problems as long as you abide by the rules. Remember, you have to abide by the rules. Otherwise, there will be a huge disaster. Gu Shanshui warned them again and again. Li Mabai said, Master Gu's family used a rear Gu. Later, the Gu family moved to the vicinity of Chiang Rai and learned the local techniques. They have a deep understanding of Buddha plaques and Kumanthong. Now, they have formed their own school. Even in Chiang Rai, there aren't many people who can compare to Master Gu. Zhou followed Gu Shanshui's instructions and fed the Buddha plaque a drop of blood before hanging it around his neck. Everyone hung up the Buddha plaques and entered the flower river under Gu Shanshui's lead. Just as Gu Shanshui had said, after hanging the Buddha plaque, they didn't have their spiritual consciousnesses absorbed. The group traversed the flower river, and all they could see was a sea of flowers. There were no other creatures. Although it looked beautiful, it also gave off a lonely feeling. Zhou originally wanted Gu Shanshui to help him see what the Buddha plaques he had obtained from Shaoxi were for, but after some thought, he decided against it. This place wasn't far from Chiang Rai. If the Shao family knew that Shaoxi's Buddha plaque had landed in his hands, it would inevitably cause trouble. The sky gradually darkened as the moon rose into the sky. Under the moonlight, the flower river seemed to be covered in a mysterious veil. It looked beautiful and terrifying. Gulu suddenly screamed and fell into the flowers. His eyes rolled back as his body convulsed violently. White foam seeped out of his mouth as though he was having an epileptic fit. Everyone was alarmed. Gu Shanshui reacted the fastest. He pinched Gulu's mouth and forced it open. Then, he took out a small bottle and poured it into Gulu's mouth. Zhou originally imagined that the bottle was filled with medicine, but to his surprise, he saw a centipede-like worm crawl out of the bottle and enter Gulu's mouth. Chapter 778. Gulu's abdomen swelled up, and he suddenly turned over and lay on the ground to vomit. When Zhou saw Gulu vomit a lot of white things, he took a careful look and nearly vomited as well. Gulu had vomited many maggots that were squirming on the ground. Gulu vomited more and more worms. The others felt their scalps go numb. They were worried that they would end up like Gulu. After vomiting for a while, Gulu also vomited out the centipede-like bug. His swollen abdomen had also subsided. He looked much better, but his face was frighteningly pale. Master Gu, what's wrong with Gulu? Li Mabai asked. Just now, they had already paid attention to their surroundings and did not find any problems. Gulu's sudden accident made them very uneasy. Don't worry, it's not a problem with the flower of life. Someone planted a parasite in his body, and I've already killed him. Gu Shanshui extended his hand and beckoned. The centipede-like bug flew into his hand, and something dropped from its claws. It was a worm the size of a grain of rice. It really looked like a grain of rice. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to tell that it was actually a worm. This is a rather common rice Gu. Although it is only at the legendary level, it is easily eaten by the opponent if it is mixed in the rice grains. After it enters the body, it uses the internal force of rapid reproduction to destroy the body from the inside. It is very difficult for outsiders to understand. Gu Shanshui paused for a moment before continuing. The rice goo isn't fast, and its offensive strength isn't very strong. It's very difficult for it to enter the body directly. Before we came, the rice goo had already mixed into the bamboo bucket of rice that Gu Lu brought. That's why the rice goo invaded his body after he ate it. With that said, Gu Shanshui got Gu Lu and Gu He to check the things they had brought. Indeed, they found some rice goo in their bamboo buckets of rice. They also found a goo thinner than a strand of hair in the kettle. Gu Shanshui told them that it was also a legendary goo named bone drilling worm. It could easily kill a person if it invaded their body. It would burrow into the bone cavity and reproduce in large numbers, gnawing at the bones until there were none left. Zhou Wen heaved a sigh of relief. The few of them hadn't eaten the bamboo bucket of rice, nor had they drunk any water. Now, they didn't feel like eating or drinking. The few of them handed their things to Gu Shanshui for inspection. Thankfully, there were no problems with their food and water. From the looks of it, someone did this before we set off. Master Gu, do you know who did it? Li Maobai asked. Gu Shanshui shook his head and said, our Gu family probably wouldn't do such a thing because they know that these Gu can't deal with me. Li Maobai fell into deep thought. If they weren't from the Gu family, it was possible that they weren't targeting Gu Shanshui and company. The scope was too wide, making it difficult to guess. Master Gu, is there any way to guard against these parasites? Butterfly asked. After all, she was a woman. When she saw the scene of Gu Lu vomiting maggots, she was disgusted. If she had to vomit again, she would rather die. There are countless Gu worms in the southern district. It's easy to defend against one or a few, but to defend against all of them, one can only rely on one's experience and judgment. However, if you have a legendary divine item that can restrain all Gu, no Gu will dare approach you. As Gu Shanshui spoke, he glanced at the chick on Zhou Wen's shoulder. What divine item is that? Butterfly asked. The most famous one is the mythical ice silkworm Gu. If you have an ice silkworm Gu, basically no Gu will dare approach you. Even if they dare to approach, they will be discovered by the ice silkworm Gu and killed. Most mythical Gu have similar effects. The prerequisite is that you can tame it, Gu Shanshui said. Can't you just kill it and have a companion beast drop? Butterfly asked. Some can, some can't, Gu Shanshui said ambiguously. Why? Butterfly asked in puzzlement. Because living Gu have experienced many battles. They have very strong instincts, experience, and a certain level of intelligence. They also have territorial awareness. However, companion beasts might not have high intelligence. Without combat experience and territorial awareness, most of them need their owners to control them before they can unleash their might. They will be much weaker in terms of taking precautions in advance. Furthermore, mythical Gu might not drop companion beasts. The chances of them being domesticated are higher, Gu Shanshui said. Master Gu, do you have any mythical Gu on you? Release them and let us broaden our horizons, Butterfly said. If I had one, I wouldn't have needed to ask Mr. Zhou to help me capture the corpse bug. There are many people who rear Gu in the South District, but very few have mythical Gu. Furthermore, most of them should be in the Dugu family. Gu Shanshui seemed to be in a good mood as he continued. If Mr. Zhou can help me capture the corpse bug this time, I will have a mythical Gu. In the future, the Gu family will be considered one of the top figures in the South District. Gu Shanshui checked everyone's belongings and didn't find any more Gu before continuing on their way. The flower river under the moon was so beautiful that it left one's heart palpitating. A breeze blew past, causing the flowers to sway like ripples in the river. Gu Shanshui sniffed hard and suddenly stopped. Furthermore, he gestured for them to stop before looking at the distant flower river. Zhou Wen and company stopped and traced his gaze. They saw a sea of flowers in front of them, but they didn't discover anything. But the wind was getting stronger and stronger. Not long after, they they saw some lights dancing on the Flower River in the distance. Zhou truth listener ability was extremely powerful, so he quickly saw what it was. It wasn't a light at all, but a crystal-like butterfly. The butterfly's entire body was transparent, and there were many patterns on the inside of its wings. The patterns suffused an ice-blue cold light, making it look even more dazzling. When the ice-blue butterfly flapped its wings, it stirred up a strong wind that stirred up ripples on the Flower River. That's another butterfly. When Gu Lu saw that it was a butterfly, his pale face instantly paled. Beside him, Gu He wasn't any better. His expression was extremely ugly. It's no wonder no one who enters the Flower River can leave alive. There's actually another butterfly here, Gu Shanshui said with a heavy expression. Although Zhou Wen didn't know what a nether butterfly was, he could tell from the essence energy fluctuations on its body that it was definitely a mythical dimensional creature. The legendary Nether Envoy, the nether butterfly that guides souls into the underworld. Li Ma Bai had clearly heard of the nether butterfly's name as he stared at the butterfly and said with a frown. Gu Shanshui whispered, I've only heard of people encountering nether butterflies in the past, but that was in a mysterious dimensional zone that humans are almost unable to reach. I never expected there to be a nether butterfly in the Flower River. Our luck sure isn't good. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.